The story takes place in a little island called Cuba. Most people do not know about Cuba. They hear about it from time to time. They are more familiar with the capital, Havana. This story does not take place in Havana, no. This house is located to the west of Havana in a region known as Pinar del Rio. To non-Spanish speakers, the place is called Bushy Side of the River or Forested Zone by the river. There is a park about a couple of blocks away from the house that has some large plumerian flowers and some pines. The other trees are pines separating two roads that lead to school. Behind the house there is a fence, and beyond it a little dirt park. It has some iron swings, a couple of slides, and a single wall covered by hibiscus flowers. As for river, there was not a single one near this house. To find any large bodies of water, one had to take a horse carriage to La Palma, or the Palm. The reader might be tempted to think that the story took place during the colonial period, but nothing could be further from the truth. There was some semblance of technology and advancement. Our story begins in the year 1982. During that time, Cuba still maintained healthy relationship with the Russians, formerly known as the Soviets. There was still steak and chicken ranches, and the amusement stores were just opening. Dollars entering from the interior were severely limited and considered a contraband good. The ratio for $1 was 300 pesos. The house was situated in a street known as Isabel la Católica. The house itself had only one room. Being a colonial house made during the time of the Spaniards, the roof was rather high. The doors too followed suit. Each was cut to perfectly fit about 10 feet high. The connecting bedroom doors were only 7 feet tall. The facade had two 8 feet tall windows made of wood with ornamental iron bars protruding from the walls. The windows were cemented into glass squares. There was a second exterior solid wooden window made of solid wood to protect it. These two windows open within. As soon as you enter, you are greeted by a majestic living room with a teardrop chandelier. The living room and kitchen floor was made of marble or checkerboard pattern. Meanwhile, the bedroom floors were made of red tiles. If you walk past from this room, you arrive at the interior wall concrete patio. This house and many other neighbors were wall to wall, and beyond this patio one found the kitchen with the only working bathroom. Working has quotes and quotes for good reason. Since this was a colonial house, the bathroom and electricity was a modern modification. There was only a single faucet that had running water, and it was not found in the bathroom, though through the usage of a hose, the two main water tanks were filled. The first was located in the back garden past the kitchen. This garden was also made of concrete. The only working faucet and sink to wash laundry. This water tank was made of copper. The second was found in the interior and it was made of blue plastic. Aside from the water tank, the back garden had two gas stove tanks. They were mainly used for the gas stove. The kitchen also had the same tier glass chandelier. Each room had connecting doors. There was also a single door and a pair of windows that faced the garden. The windows in the bedroom were small and rather high, requiring a stick to open them every day. The first room was the only one that did not face the garden. Rather, its doors opened to the living room. It also had a window facing the porch and its own chandelier. The two other rooms had regular single light boat lamps. And since this was a colonial house, the wall interiors were painted white. The crown moldings were also white as well. The kitchen did not follow the same pale scheme, since the walls were painted blue. This was not the original coloring of the house. It had originally had a yellow wallpaper in the living room and a red one in the kitchen. The interior garden was unassuming. The floor was made of concrete. It had a single grate that led into the sewer. It was somewhat ornamental. The problem with this ornamentation was that the magnolia tree of the neighbor. It towered over the house, and from time to time it would draw leaves into the concrete garden. When the crate was covered with leaves, it would clog up, thus creating a flooding hazard. In the corner of this garden there was a wave dipole antenna. The reader may be wondering about this useless concrete garden of the house. Truth be told, despite the heat, there was pool culture in Cuba. The nearest pool to the house was a public one. It had been created to train Olympic divers and swimmers. As such, it was extremely deep. It was not too uncommon for people to drown in it every so often. There were some other ones here and there, but they were relegated only to foreigners and high-ranking party members. The irony of this pool that the first person who drowned in it was a foreign Olympic swimmer. None of the locals remember the name of the dead foreigner, just that he was an Olympic swimmer. Foreigners tended to drop dead in Cuba from time to time, so this unfortunate drowning was nothing new. Neither the Cubans nor the world had ever cared about people dropping dead in Cuba. The entire point of this story is that this house will never ever get a pool, so don't expect it in this story. This was what the house looked at when the family first moved in. Some of the things were added to it later. This is just the start of the story. She was assigned to become a doctor. In Cuba, you do not pick the career. The government chooses one for you based on your skills and grades. She met her second husband, Eduardo, while working in the polyclinic. After 2 years, they got married and had 2 children. Angelica would have liked to have more children, but her husband decided for her that 2 was more than enough. Since he was the head of the hospital, he had her tubes tied. This was a bit short-sighted in the long run, but nothing that hampered the stability of the marriage. While Eduardo was comfortable living in Cuba, Angelica dreamed of moving to Spain. Her weird cousin had lived there for a time, and had returned with stories of siestas, free healthcare, and a fully stocked market. It was a food situation that seemed the most appealing to Angelica. Like her mother before her, she dreamed of being overweight. Still, she never said this aloud or even allowed herself to entertain such a childish notion. No wife should ever hope to be so unappealing. To cope with her never-ending desire to eat, she resorted to the cylinder of nicotine. She had stopped her little nasty hobby when she got married, but she had recently picked it up again. As luck would have it, both her children did not enjoy the best of health. The boy, who was 7, was taking steroids for his asthma. Her little girl had to go to the hospital every other weekend. After some experimental treatment, the boy was cured and the girl was getting better. Still, the daughter was treated like a delicate flower because she had been in a coma once. The older brother was named Eufrasio, and the little girl Lucero. The boy's name meant that he used his words well. As for Lucero, it meant tiny star. The ironic thing about Eufrasio was that he had a stutter. As for Lucero, she was cordially known in the neighborhood as Lucifer. She was just that annoying. There was a time when they thought she was possessed, but no. In the end, it turned out she had learned those English curse words from a British neighbor who was slumming down in Cuba. Both siblings were rather tough for their age. They shared the same delicate frame of their mother. Still, Eufrasio had buckled up ever since he started primary school. At his age, he already had what he called his mortal enemy. As for Lucero, it was this year when she was going to start school at the age of 5. While her brother had straight hair and green eyes, she was cursed with a hair whose texture was akin to hay. She got such a hair not from her African side of her family, but from the Spanish people on her mom's side. She had the same face as the Menina princess, with the temperament of a Chihuahua. Aside from the main family unit, there was Angelica's mother. Her name was Irina Leighton. Her father was British while her mother was Soviet. She had recently divorced her husband, and all his belongings had been split in half by her. With her, half of everything, including half a table, she was currently living with Angelica and the rest of her family. When she was younger, she looked identical to her daughter, only with a fuller figure. She was also of fair skin, with deep blue eyes and a blonde hair that was the envy of many. Her daughter also envied her mother's behind, though she never would admit it. At the age of 53, she was already retired. Retirement in those days was 50 for women and 55 for men. Despite her age, she did not look a day over 35. She kept herself sleek, despite smoking those thick Cuban cigars. The rest of the world knows them as Habanos. Still, they are all manufactured in La Palma, that is situated in Pinar del Rio. The name of the company was chosen to be Havana because foreigners were only familiar with the capital of Cuba. To pay for her schooling, Angelica had worked in those tobacco farms for about a couple of years. Education was free, but you still had to work to pay for education. The entrance to the farm was done by force. Two army dudes would come into your house and take you away. Even if you were not planning on having higher education, you still had to slave away in the farm in the same fashion as your African ancestor. While in the farm, she learned many practical agricultural practices. She hoped to apply such skills on her new house. The end.
And action.
Hello, my name is Teresita, Blanco, the Yoshi sister, and today I'm going to read to you chapter 3 of La Casa. You can read La Casa in both Barnes & Noble and in Amazon. Okay, chapter 3, La Palma. The story begins with a massive family fight on a horse-drawn cart. Inside there were 20 other people, all squished together like sardines. On the further part of the car, there are the travel bags of everyone, all piled on top of each other. The mazes belonging are inside 4 wooden arcs. They were part of Irina's divorce settlement. The mazes were in the middle standing, while the two children sat by the window. Little Lucero was pouting. She hugged her knees a little and whimpered, "Mom, I want water. You're not getting any," said Eufrasio. Lucero turned around and held on to the bars of the window, and she started kicking the wall. This called the attention of Irina. She came to Lucero and asked, "What do you need?" "I want water," insisted Lucero. Irina pushed herself past a sweaty farmer. She too was sweating a sleeveless summer dress. It was decorated with polka dots. Around her waist she had a white belt. Her makeup was slightly running and she was wearing white sandals. Lucero too was putting her favorite yellow dress. It was decorated with yellow rhinestones. It was knee-long, with a sash with a flower around the hip. Her shoes were black, made of patent leather. Since she used those shoes too much, the metal of the talon was somewhat exposed. As such, whenever she kicked the walls, Lucero made a louder sound. She knew this too, and over the months she had worn down the back of her shoes to increase their acoustics. Since Irina was not getting her water fast enough, Lucero redoubled her efforts. Eufrasio got used to her trying to strongly ignore her. He changed his attention to one of the toy soldiers he held in his hand. He placed the pair by the window and made it seem as if they were marching through the countryside. Sighing, Irina made it to where Eduardo and Angelica were standing. They had moved to the open back portion of the car to get some wind. The bad thing about it was that they were close to the edge. One bad bump and they would easily splatter against the road. Not that it mattered much, too. At the rate of 15 kilometers per hour, they would not be hurt too much if they fell on the road. Eduardo was dressed like his son with a green tank top and green cargo pants and sandals. As for Angelica, she was sporting a short shirt and a white Wally World National Lampoon t-shirt and tennis shoes. She was already used to the weather of La Palma, as such she did not bother to put on makeup. It was an unusually warm afternoon, and from time to time a life-giving breeze would come and rock the little carriage. There was still 1 more hour before they would arrive at the new house in La Palma. They heard the noise being made by Lucero, and guess what was the problem? Though they were thirsty, they had saved the bottle of water for the little noisy critter. They gave the water bottle to Irina, who took a small sip. She then passed through the crowd before handing it to little Lucero. Part of the reason why Irina had drunk from the water was to remove some of the smell from Angelica's forged cigarette. Smoking while on a bumpy carriage ride is almost an impossible feat, but where there is an addiction, there is a way. When Lucero held the bottle, she drank a little bit in order to ration the water. She handed it to her brother Eufrasio. He had not asked for water, nor was he thirsty, but he drank it nonetheless. His sister would get cranky if her kind gesture was ever ignored. With a firm voice, he said, "Thank you." "You're welcome," said Lucero. She then stood up and held onto the bars of the carriage. Once she had a good grip, she started crying while saying, "I want to get off! Wah!" There was a universal moan echo throughout the carriage. She then started smacking the chair with her heels of her shoes while rattling the bars of the window. She continued in this fashion for the remainder of the 1-hour trip. Every 15 minutes, she would take a 1-minute break to rest her voice and get more water. Once her throat was hydrated enough, she would continue her tantrum. The other passengers were just waiting for the moment to end. A couple had even gotten enough to continue walking the rest of the way. Those lazy and anxious they had to endure the high-pitched calmness that was Lucero. You might be wondering why Lucero had not been disciplined. Discipline had been tried before and it had failed many times. Reasoning with her also did not work because Lucero had an independent mind and she could not be reasoned out of her reason. And as for physical discipline, it is true that it was commonplace in Cuba. Irina was at the age when she mothers her grandchildren even more than her own mother. As for Angelica, she had tried to do so once and her husband had told her, Lucero is flesh of your flesh. This was the one and only time Angelica had ever tried physical discipline on her daughter. On hindsight, she should have controlled herself when she saw that Lucero had mutilated, drowned, and thrown away her smokes. Angelica knew that they were bad for her, she being a doctor and all. All those who have ever suffered from an addiction know how hard it is to keep the habit. Eduardo's only addiction was towards oranges. Man, did he love those oranges. One time in his work, they even gave him a cake with an orange in the center. As for Irina, she smoked her habanos more out of habit than necessity. She could easily go without it for an entire month when supplies were running low. She was forever addicted to Santeria. Despite having a financial degree, she loved throwing the cards, palm reading, and tending to her little Elegua. She had his little effigy wrapped in paper and plastic bubbles inside a wooden nut with her belongings. The visual sign of the side of her was the small bead bracelet she was wearing. It had red and black cotton patterns associated with her Elegua. When they finally arrived at the destination, the farmers all cheered, and they even helped unload the arms and luggage in the house. The house they arrived into is not the house of a story. In fact, they are only going to be inside this house for only one day. The items were left in the living room. This colonial farmhouse was made of sturdy hickory and ashwood. The floor was made of oak as well as the window. It had a nice wood-on-wood table feel, with warm oranges and brown colors. The furniture was made of leather, and there were even a couple of animal pelts here and there. Other beds had white linen and a mosquito netting. The prime decoration of the house was a Stradivarius violin. It was displayed against the wall, held up by nails. Irina went to the violin and got the ball as well. She said to the little children who gathered around her, "You want me to sing you a little song?" The children nodded in response. Angelica frowned and said to her husband, "I guess mother is not going to help today. It has been a long day for all of us. Let her do what she wants." Irina always sang for Lucero's favorite song. In Serbia there was a house, and in the house a window, and in the window a little girl who was envied by the roses. The song was interrupted when Irina felt something tickling her ear. As one known to have fear of bugs, Irina did what came natural to her. She flung the violin against the wall. She then started fastidiously to clean her ear with the collar of her dress. She then scratched her shoulder, and the shooter got up and moved back a pace. They eyed the broken violin with suspicion. It was then when Lucero screamed, "Roche!" This naturally brought the entire house into a panic. Angela came in with her sandal, looking about, saying, "Where? Where?" There," said both children in unison. The critter was there on the floor, eyeing the human with suspicion. The children subconsciously moved away from it. Lucero stood on top of the couch while Horacio jumped on top of the rocking chair. Eduardo appeared from the outside of the porch and asked, "Did you get it?" In response to his inquiry, the roach took flight in his direction. There was a nearby bucket on the edge, which he threw at the flying pest. With the roach trapped beneath it, the wind menace was subdued for the moment. It started flattening itself to make it outside once more. With her wits recovered, Irina mustered all her strength and she lifted the bucket. With two precise steps, the wind menace was no more. Irina took a deep sigh and said, "Jesus Christ." "I'm sorry, Mom," said Angelica sadly. She added, Your violin broke." Irina came to look at her instrument, shocked, and she said, "It's fine. The termite had already done most of the work. It was only a matter of time till it turned to dust." "Is it over?" asked Lucero. I don't want to step on the floor," said Horacio. Eduardo came to offer his back to Horacio. He carried his son outside, and he did the same for Lucero. It will be a bit before the children will be brave enough to enter inside. The children watched their parents tidy up the home while looking from the outside of the window. After half an hour, Irina got bored and said, "I'm going to go for a walk." She came to the children, and they each took her hand. Together they made their way past the natural garden, and they came upon a river. All right, we'll continue this later. Bye-bye and God bless. Hello, my name is Teresita Blanco, the arts sister, and today I'm going to read you The House, or La Casa. You can 3 because I didn't have enough time to read you the rest. Okay, so let's continue. She came to the children and she took their hands. Together they made their way past the natural garden and they came upon the river. The river was called Blanco or white. Despite having such a name, it had brown coloring to it. The other name that it had was the chocolate of the widow. The coloring came from the rocks from close to the river, which showed from the color of the rocks. Inside its gentle banks, the children noted tiny fishes. By the time the river reached its house, it had degraded into a small stream. It had many numerous rocks of different sizes. Stones on the floor were not rounded, but large, solid, flat slabs. The rocks protruding from the ground had moss growing on them. The children moved from small rock to small rock. And they started a silly balancing act. They would try to get back and forth, taking as few steps as possible. You got extra points by trying to make it across the dry rock with little steps. As for Elena, she sat down on a rock and brought out a book she had taken for the library. The house had a true library with hundreds of classics. Over the years, many of the books had been thrown away for being in the way. Elena had read most of them, and she had personally discarded many books that did not agree with her. Most of them were books written by Anton Chekhov. And she didn't much care for Hemingway's writing, even though he was popular in Cuba. The book that Alina was reading was by Unassuming. She had read it a couple of times, but she still enjoyed it. It was called Niebla or Fog. Now she was reading. The book had quite a severe premise, but it kept her amused. It was mainly the dialogue. We have hardly any scene descriptions. It was quick but with not too much action. From time to time, Irina would look up from her little book to see what the children were up to. Lucero came up to her and said, "Can I have some paper?" Irina removed one of the blank pages from the book. Lucero handed it to Horacio. He bent the paper in two, and using his knee for support, he then licked the side of it. And once the paper was off, he gently separated the parchment. When he had two papers, he made with them two tiny boats. The boat floated gently by, and the rest of the day progressed just as uneventfully as the boat. The placidity of the stream and the laughter of the children at play all combined to relax Irina's tense nerves. There was no fear that the children might drown. The stream was barely a couple of inches deep. The only thing that broke the peace was Lucero's occasional coughing fit. This was quickly addressed by the river, and she would sit down and drink the clear, pure water. Eventually, the children and Irina were summoned for lunch. The family had super salty eggs and hot rice. Irina frowned and said to her daughter, "I told you to come in to make lunch." "I'm sorry, Mom, but you seem tired from the ride," said Angelica meekly. "I prefer to be tired than to eat bad eggs," said Irina. Lucero did not even try the eggs or the rice. She felt the rice with her hand and she smelled the eggs over the top. She left the table and went to eat a piece of fresh Cuban bread. Lucero was quite particular about how she ate her bread. She would first remove the hard part with her nail, and once she had the white of the bread, she separated from the rice. She would eat the hard part first, and then finally the softest white part of the bread. For a drink, she had orange juice. And this orange juice, she drank it with a spoon instead of gulping down the glass. Horacio was not too particular about what he ate, but even he could not stomach hard rice. He placed the egg inside a piece of bread, but only then was he able to eat his lunch. After this defeat, Angelica felt that her time was better spent gathering new supplies. The fridge was still pretty empty since her last visit. She pondered on whether to take Lucero with her or not. In the end, she decided not to pester the girl. Eduardo stayed with the children while Angelica went to acquire supplies. Getting supplies in Cuba was a simple affair for people who did not mind starving. One simply had to offer a card, and then your basic basket was fulfilled by the store. You were not allowed to stockpile on anything. Angelica did fill her basic basket of rice, chicken, eggs, beans, and soap. After delivering these supplies, she went to fill her black basket. The black basket was anything else you acquired that did not belong to the basic basket. From friends, patients, and family members, she acquired the steak, spaghetti, tomato sauce, and milk. Milk was something that was delivered daily, and it too was rationed. The only thing that Lucero drank with regularity was milk, and so she received extra rations over from her mother. When Angelica arrived home, the beans were already done, and the rice was a work in process. She found her husband reading to Lucero and Eufrasio. He had always made certain to read to his children whenever he got a chance. Aside from reading, Eduardo taught his children all the Catholic prayer. Eufrasio had all the rosaries memorized, as well as Our Father, Hail Mary, Glory Be, and the Nicene Creed, and the Novena to Our Lady of Loreto. Currently, they were reading The Golden Age by Jose Marti. The current story that they were reading was called The Black Dog. Lucero particularly liked the story of the dog. It was the reason why she requested to hear the story again. As for Eufrasio, he preferred the story called The Enchanted Crab. For now, the attention of the children was not focused enough for longer words. Just a few days ago, Eduardo had tried to read them Peter and Wendy. He thought that they would enjoy the book since they had liked the Disney movie of Peter Pan. Lucero had tuned out after a couple of pages, while Eufrasio had called the quiz after chapter 1. Eduardo had not tried to read a book to his children, a long book since then. It was only one of the many books rotting away in the library in the old ranch house. The library was beside the dentist's office, which still had a swivel shed on it. He tried to finish reading the book, but he got bored past chapter 3. It was around 5 when the wife finished her errand. She boiled some milk for the children. Eufrasio drank his milk out of a glass. As for Lucero, she drank on a baby bottle. She lay back on the couch and she rested her head on her mother's knee, and with one hand she held her bottle, and with the other she held onto her mother's ear. When the meal was concluded, the TV was put on. It was the time for the afternoon cartoons. During Angelica's time, the TV used to have only Russian cartoons. It was later when the programming got diversified with some original programming to foster Cuban identity. The best representative of this lot was Elpidio Valdez. Like Martí, he was always fighting against Hispania. As most children should, it had plenty of humorous overtones, despite taking place during the War of Independence. From the outside world, the approved programming included Tom and Jerry and a bunch of awesome Tezuka anime shows. He-Man, Scooby-Doo, the Roadrunner, the Pistols, the Pink Panther, the Jetsons, Godzilla, and all the Disney classics. There were only 2 channels on television. One channel always had nothing, the other occasionally had something watchable, but only at 6:30 p.m. and then again at 8:30. For late night hours, TV got good after midnight. Eufrasio many times wondered why the TV had 93 channels when they only had 2, 3, and 12, where only channels 2, 3, and 12 were usable. Channel 3 was normally reserved for the adults. Only the basic clothing had been taken out. As with everything, one starts with good intention and then the heat of the day bogs down on you. You sort of forget what you were supposed to do in the first place. It was pretty hot inside the house as well. The children, after playing by the river, had changed into lighter clothing. With only a shirt and the undergarments, the siblings were both entranced by the television. Eduardo too was entranced, but he would never admit it. It wasn't every day he had some free time to spend it with the family. The family was eventually summoned to dinner. Since Lucero had not eaten lunch, she was served her favorite meal. She ate spaghetti with steak. The other had steak with black beans and rice. The meal itself was concluded rather quickly, as was tradition. The parents always had to eat quickly to get back to work. Elena did so because she despised eating cold food. The children also ate quickly in mimicry of their parents. When the meal was concluded, the children went to brush their teeth. Alright, we'll finish chapter 3 next time. Bye bye and God bless. Blanco, the Earth's sister, and today we're going to see if we can finish chapter 3 of La Casa, or the house, by me. When the meal was concluded, the children went to brush their teeth. They usually did so whenever it got close to bedtime. The time actually quite varied. Since they had played a lot outside, they went directly to bed. Elena retired to the library to practice her divination. It was a skill that required polish. To attune them, she was using to predict the past. She gauged whether the cards were in a speaking mood or not based on their accuracy. If they were not in a talking mood, it was best not to press the issue. She brought out from her tower case her little LWA figurine. She placed some candy and a couple of marbles for it as offering. She then lighted a Cuba cigar and she breathed over the statue. The statue resembled a little black volcano. From the top, the smoke made it emanate a sappy-looking substance. Angelica saw her mother performing this rite, and she shook her head sadly. As for Eduardo, he was watching TV with the volume low. Currently, the TV was showing La Gran Escena, or the Grand Stage. The show featured classical works, especially ballet. Angelica still remembered her little ballet practices. She still enjoyed watching the dance and hearing the music. In fact, she enjoyed all types of dancing. It was a pity that her husband had been born with 2 left feet. Still, he did not stop her from dancing whenever there was a dancer able to keep up with her. The TV was showing Alicia Alonso as Giselle. Alonso was the most famous ballerina in Cuba, and she founded the Alicia Alonso Ballet Company. All the top Cuban ballet dancers had been trained under her. About 2 hours before midnight, the crickets awoke. They started making the ungodly noise associated with the ill. Those used to the loud can easily tune it out. As for outsiders, it may seem to them like an auditory attack. Noise pollution was quite common in Cuba. Sometimes it was biplanes, others an arbitrary alarm, and even a cannon shot. Things were usually a lot quieter when there was a blackout. Angelica noted the time and she decided to check up on the shooting. She scratched her knee with her fingers before getting up. As she walked towards the room, she did so again. It was then when she noted the ungodly mosquito bite. Further examination of the leg revealed 4 other mosquito bites. After whispering some profanity, she took the medical kit and she applied a bit of antiseptic cream. With this done, she finally arrived at the room. She noticed Eufrasio sleeping soundly. As for Lucero, she had her little brow furrowed. Lucero was prone to nightmare. Angelica gave a closer look at her daughter and she frowned. The girl was scratching her forehead while she slept. Angelica noted a new mosquito landing on the forehead of her daughter. Angelica entered within the mosquito net and she gently swatted the mosquito. This took a lot of calibration. She had to both be swift and gentle. Angelica sat there watching over her daughter. Eufrasio came to check up on her as well, and Angelica whispered, "I'm going to keep an eye on her. Go to sleep," Eduardo noted. By now, everyone had gone to bed. The only light came from the nightlight. The light coming from the hallway had been turned off. Again, Angelica noticed that her daughter was crashing. This time around, feeling that this was getting ridiculous, Angelica crawled on the mosquito net and she turned on the light. Lucero Eufrasio awoke. They immediately turned in their sleep. She was used to lights turning on at random times back in the hospital. As such, the sudden person light did not disrupt her REM cycle. It only deepened it. With plenty of light, Angelica was able to see them. Why the mosquitoes were so fixated on Lucero, Angelica would never know. The point was that the tenacious little critters were poking holes into the mosquito net. Since the netting was not working, Angelica entered with it and she swatted away all the mosquitoes that attacked the little Lucero. She waged a silent war against the mosquitoes for hours, but eventually they won. Angelica exhausted fell asleep beside her daughter without realizing. When morning came, her little girl had bites from head to toe. Since it was summer, the children were of the habit of sleeping without bed sheets, with only a thin pajamas covering them. The little girl had been easy picky. Irina was the one to notice her. It was her cry of horror which woke Angelica from her peaceful slumber. She saw her mother cradling Lucero crying. She kept asking, "You fool, how could you let this happen?" Since Irina was crying, Angelica started crying as well out of skill. After a few minutes, Eduardo came to see the commotion. He too gave Angelica a serious talking to. The only person undisturbed by this all was Eufrasio. He was a heavy sleeper. He only found out about what happened to his sister around noon when his belly awoke him. He noted that all of the stuff they had brought had been put away. He asked his father, "I thought we were going to leave here. The mosquitoes attacked your sister. We're not coming back to this house ever again." Noticing his dead stone, Eufrasio decided not to press the issue. He had a non-confrontational type of personality. With everything packed, the Mason family left the house in La Palma for good. It will be another year before they will move into the house that is the main setting of this story. The end. continue with chapter. Hello, my name is Teresita, Blanco, the Earth's sister, and today I'm going to read to you The House, and we're in chapter 4. Chapter 4, Delicia. After the single unfortunate night in La Palma, the adults develop an aversion for that house and the mosquito. The most common mosquito found in Cuba is the Aedes aegypti. Before Carlos J. Finlay, this mosquito was making quite a dent on the Cuban population through the spread of the yellow fever. According to Cuban history, the guy created a vaccine to treat the virus. Yellow fever is no longer a problem for the Cubans. It might be a problem for outsiders who are not vaccinated or who do not descend from somebody who has a resistance to the virus. Despite vaccination, the Cuban government takes its mosquito problem seriously, with regular fumigation. Eufrasio had learned of Finlay while at school. He thought that the man to be quite a trooper for testing the vaccine on himself instead of on another person. He thought about his sister and the experimental treatment she was undergoing. He doubted if the doctor had tried it on themselves before testing it on her. At times he wondered if they had taken his sister if only to try out their cures. Such types of experimentations are pretty common in countries where human life is not valued. The end justifies the means, for the future is an unpredictable, ephemeral thing. One never knows if the result of the research would just be a large heap of bodies. Whether Francis' speculations were true or not, there was an observable pattern. Whenever the scientists were itching to invent a cure for something, there was suddenly an incident or rise of the malady that they were investigating. Angelica had worked for the research team in the past, but she had turned her back on such unethical wars. One could only see so many fetuses before one's stomach begins to turn. Then again, for most doctors, the patient is seen as an object and not as a person. This objectivity is a double-edged sword. It helps the doctor keep his head cool while trying to save a life, but it can make it easy for them to snuff that life for the sake of learning. As things stood, the Hippocratic oath was optional. Despite all the mosquito bites, Lucero did not become sick, only very itchy. As for Eufrasio, he had caught a cold, but was pretending to feel well. He was afraid to go to the doctor, so he pretended that he was alright. On the right back, he breathed through his nose. He pressed with his index finger on his chest to stifle his cough. Eventually, his father's clinical eyes caught the roots. Eufrasio was forced to admit that he was not feeling well. When the ride concluded, they returned to the small apartment in Delicia, in Pinar del Rio. Delicia was the neighborhood just beside Isabela la Católica. It was mainly composed of apartment complexes. The name itself means delicacy. Still, there was nothing delicate or delicious about the place. It was just one of those stoic utilitarian buildings. The apartment currently inhabited by the Mason family was on the second floor. The floor was made of fake tiles meant to resemble marble flooring. They had a nice classic checkerboard pattern. It ran through the entire length of the apartment. Aside from the kitchen and the large living room, the place only had 2 bedrooms. With the kids growing, Eduardo had felt that they needed a larger space, so that at least his son could have his own room. Lucero was still at the age where she did not like sleeping alone. As such, she still had her crib in the apartment, even though she was way too big for it. Lucero did not like this apartment. At night, there was a creepy shadow washing over her. She thought it was a ghost, but little did she know that it was her father, making certain that she was still breathing. Sometimes she would close her eye and wait a bit, and she would open them to make certain that the shade had departed her bedside. Only when she was left in peace did she finally manage to fall asleep. As for Angelica, the reason why she wanted to move was because of the windows. They were Jean Louis windows. They were formed by a collection of individual rectangular sheets of glass. They were useful for letting the wind inside the apartment building, but it made Angelica quite paranoid. All that was required to enter the home was removing the glass sheets. This apartment complex had such windows because there was no air conditioner. They could also be kept part way open during the rain to allow air to flow in, while keeping the rain out. In Pinar del Rio, it rained almost every week. Whenever the weatherman predicted any drought, it was a warning sign to prepare for a monsoon. He did not have the best accuracy, but he was well liked by somebody in the TV station, and thus his ineptitude was tolerated. As long as you had good connection, one could keep your job in Cuba even if you were terrible at it. This did not cause too many problems, except for those who were tasked with keeping people alive. More than a couple of bullets had cost some unfortunate soldier life. It was for this reason that Eduardo always watched his nurses like a hawk. Whenever one would say, "But I thought," Eduardo would respond by saying, "Do not think, for you only think on mistakes." One of those silly fools had almost cost his little girl her life. In the end, she only got better when she was transferred to the hospital in Havana. He was harsh but fair. There were no room for fools when there is a person's life at risk. You are either focused while working at a hospital or you're guilty of manslaughter. This is the ideal scenario. Most little accidents went unpunishment. There was no such thing as medical malpractice lawsuit in Cuba during those days. If a person is to take reparation for such a person, the only choice is to take matters into one's hand, or to compel a party member to do justice on your behalf. Most of Cubans ran on favors and coercion. True power was based on who you knew or who you were related to. The closer one's family ties were to the head of the state, the better off you tended to live. Still, such connections did not guarantee you a good life. The Mason family was well connected because Angelica's grandfather, he had connections to the army, and he was in charge of one of the secret caches of guns. Should Cuba ever be invaded, the militia would mobilize using those caches. Since taking power over Fidel Castro had always been preparing for war. As for Eduardo, he had helped deliver many babies for top party members. Some had spent decades without conceiving, but Eduardo had provided experimental treatment for their problem. It was through one of those party members that the Mason family permuted to the last house they would ever inhabit in Cuba. It was early June. The sky was cloudy and the wind was strong. Had the weathermen bothered to even try a little hard, the people in Delicia would have known that Hurricane Alberto was coming. Preparing for a hurricane in Cuba just meant boarding up and trying to stock up on drinkable water from the fountain. Sometimes when the light went out, the water was cut as well. Due to food rationing, one could not stock up on provisions. Eduardo was looking at the new house. As for Angelica, she was busy with her shift in the clinic at San Juan Martinez. Lucero was playing on the railing. Meanwhile, Elena was keeping an eye on the children. Lucero was looking down, trying to peer over the edge. From time to time, Efracio would tug at her dress to remind her to stay on the other side of the fence. Lucero was practicing speeding. Up until now, she could only drool downwards. Thus, angling her speed towards passing people was proving rather difficult. Since she kept missing, she did not want to fall. She sat down and she squished her face against the railing. This helped her somewhat, but she ended up squeezing her head too far inside. With her head stuck, she frowned. Efracio looking up asked, "Do you need help?" "Mind your business," said Lucero annoyed. She thought a moment and she tried placing her head in the same way it had come inside. After pulling at it, she got herself out of that sticky situation, but only after bruising the side of her forehead. With her heart beating, she went to do something else with her time. As for Edina, she was in the middle of a consultation. It was Saturday, and some of the working girls were visiting with questions about love and life. Eduardo, who was returning home, noticed a line of ladies and a few gentlemen. He hid by the stairs and overheard the conversation. He then appeared to them and said, "I can throw you the cards as well." "Really, Dr. Mason? I never would guess," said the lady. Eduardo brought out from his pocket a simple deck of playing cards. He always carried for his prank. Without asking the lady any question, he threw the cards, and he said a lot of personal facts about her life that he had overheard while hiding in the stairs. This created the illusion that he was a psychic. When the lady left, Irina, who was sitting onto the judge, said to him, "You're an ass." "Did the cards tell you that?" asked Eduardo, laughing. "How was the house?" asked Irina, changing the subject. "It was spacious. It's spacious. It has a large concrete garden, three bedrooms. It has a lot of original furniture, including an air conditioner." "Now that is a rare find indeed," said Irina, smiling. "What is an air conditioner?" asked Lucero. "It's like a very strong fan. It makes the entire room very cold." "How cold?" asked Lucero. As cold as a refrigerator, said Irina. That does sound rather pleasant, said Lucero, smiling. Eduardo came closer and he asked while holding Lucero's head. Lucero, what happened to your head? Nothing, said Lucero proudly. It doesn't look like nothing, insisted her father. Eduardo did not bother to ask Francia about his sister's bruises. He knew that he would never that he never tattled on her. Changing the subject, Lucero said, "What are the wise men bringing to me this year?" In Cuba, the children waited for the three wise men instead of Santa Claus. They each brought three presents for the children. Depending on the budget of the family, they usually bought one. Every year, Lucero had received three presents. One of them she was sporting. It was a 1920s dance dress with green balls. It was a little big for her, but the original of the dress had been extremely petite for her age. Aside from the large shoulders and the fact that the dress was as low as her knees, it was a good fit. The dress had originally belonged to Lucero's great-great-great-grandmother. She had been alive up until recently. She had sewn for the little girl her baptism dress. It too was preserving the great arts. Since new staff rarely entered the island, it was common for families to try to preserve clothing items that were in good condition. This is how this 1920s party dress had been handed down to Lucero. Eduardo came to the rocking chair and he sat down. He gestured to Lucero and she sat on his lap. Looking at her benevolently, he asked, after giving her a hug and a kiss on the cheek, "What would my little princess desire?" She thought a moment and then she said, "I want a Barbie doll." "Barbie, never heard of her," said Eduardo, pouting his lips. She was one of those dolls because the neighbor's brother did not let her play with her doll. I can't blame her. Lucero never returned any toys that her brother lent her. How long has the video been going?
You have 3 minutes left.
Alright. Lucero left her father's life. She returned to the balcony by now. By now, she had managed to learn how to modulate her speed. Eventually, the little girl with the Barbie made an appearance. She was walking out towards the park. With a careful, calibrated speed, Lucero spat on her hair. The girl, feeling something fall on the back of her, made her imperceptibly pass her hand over. When she saw that it was speed, she said, "Ew, Mom, someone spat on me." Lucero retreated into the balcony. Francia, hearing the commotion, also moved back a bit so as not to be seen. A couple of floors above, the local drunkard had gone out to the balcony to smoke. Since he was in the proper angle, the mother of the girl thought that it had been him. The crazed mother climbed out the stairs to give the poor bastard a serious talking to. Since it was the family motto not to stir the pot, Eduardo did not do or say anything to calm the angry lady. He only shook his head, making an unconvincing frowning face. Lucero grinned and said she had it coming. Eufrasio said, "You can't be mean to kids just because someone lent you their toys. I know that I'm not stupid, and you're not my father to be scolding me," so said Lucero, folding her arms. "Well, somebody has to," said Nina jokingly. By now, all of the visiting maidens had finished their sessions. This was one of the rare occasions that Lucero had allowed them to enter the house uninvited. She had been too preoccupied with her petty revenge quest to bother about the strangers visiting. Around 4 p.m. the siren sounded. Right on cue, it would make an ungodly noise for about 2 hours. After listening to it, Irina finally remembered why the family was so desperate to move. For the last 2 years, it had been making the same noise for 2 hours. Irina wondered if the government was trying to drive the locals crazy. Due to the noise, Irina's visitors decided to call her a day. It was far too annoying to try to have a conversation when the stupid siren was on. Since conversing was out of the question, Irina took the time to take a bath. Well, we'll continue with the story at another day. Bye-bye, venga. My name is Teresita Blanco, the Jersey sister, and today I'm going to read you The House, written by me. We're continuing chapter 4. Dusk came and waited the rains, and the walk on deck of the siren. By now, Angelica had returned from work on her bike. Her husband walked a couple of blocks towards the nearby hospital. He had the night shift. Eduardo did not take the bike because he had never learned how to ride it. Not that it mattered too much because the hospital he worked at was near Delicia. The couple were currently working on moving to the same hospital in Isabel la Católica. Angelica smiled when she noticed the children playing on the table. Lucero was messing around with some clay. As for Efracio, he was trying to make sense of an encyclopedia he had brought back from La Palma. The encyclopedia was called Treasures of Youth. The article he was reading focused on making soap bubbles with a straw. Angelica greeted her children by hugging and kissing them on the cheek. She did the same with her mother as well, who was cooking. The windows Angelica detested so much were open to let the cool night air in. There were a couple of towels on the floor. From time to time, a gust of wind would cause some of the water to get inside. Most of the time, the Jales windows would keep out the rain, but not this time. Irina, not turning around for her soup, commented, "It is certainly pouring." "Yes, Mother." "Some of the lower streets are partially flooded," said Angelica. It's recording, right?
Yeah.
"It is a good thing Eduardo's hospital is uphill," said Irina. "Why isn't the TV on?" asked Angelica. "Because we heard thunder a couple of minutes ago," explained Lucero. Despite knowing many things, Irina only had a tacit understanding as to how lightning worked. She was convinced that electronics drew lightning. As such, to prevent a lightning strike, she would lower the amount of electricity in her apartment. This included turning off most of the light, and the TV and the fans were unplugged as well. This precaution was at least useful for keeping the electronics from being damaged in case of an electrical surge. Lucero was pretty calm despite the heavy rain. As for Horacio, he was doing his best to preoccupy his mind. He had read in his encyclopedia that lightning tended to strike tall objects. He worried that being in an apartment building might draw in lightning. He wondered how many floors could a single lightning bolt pierce through. He had recently developed an aversion for lightning. One time when climbing the stairs of the apartment, he had tried turning on the lights, and he had received quite the shock from touching the on and off switch. Ever since then, he had not bothered to turn on the light. The single light in the kitchen flickered. It was soon followed by a flash of light and then the sound of thunder. Holding a knife, Irina came to the door, and she commented, "Angie, what are you doing?" "What's the matter, Mother?" asked Angelica, putting the bike on the side of the entrance. "Your parasol is open," complained Irina. "Sorry, my bad," said Angelica. Gesturing with the knife, Irina said, You just watch it, you hear? God only knows what sort of bad luck may come your way due to the little umbrella mishap." "It was raining sideways, jeez," said Angelica. She added, "I'm going to take a shower. See you at dinner." This apartment had a single bathroom and running water. Some days it did not come for arbitrary reasons. As such, there was usually a barrel of drinkable water filled in the kitchen. If there was ever a shortage of water, the barrel could pick up the slack for at least 2 weeks. As for the umbrella mishap, it was a common superstition that being on the roof with an umbrella open brought bad luck. Irina believed in quite a number of different types of bad luck. If one stumbled with the left foot, one was supposed to double back behind the place you had stumbled on and try again with only this time walk past the spot without any problem. Another popular one was that one should avoid barricades of any type. If you walk on one side of a post and another person walked on the other side, it meant that you would get separated. Angelica naturally did not believe in such silly nuisances, but for the sake of peace, she would indulge her mother. The umbrella was left on the floor open to allow it to dry. Efracio came to the umbrella and he closed it somewhat. He did not put on the latch to allow it to drip on the floor. To avoid sleeping, Lucero went to the bedroom and brought another tower, which she placed beneath the umbrella. With his tasks done, the day was allowed to progress with its usual pace. Around dinner time, Lucero was awakened by her brother Efracio. The girl had been busy taking a nap on the couch. His mother too had been napping as well. Naps have always been popular in Cuba. The practice of napping was inherited from the Spanish conquistador. When they were not massacring the natives, they were busy taking naps. Naps usually went from 4 to 6 p.m. This was the usual time when dinner was done. If Angelica had the night shift, the nap would start around noon. Sleeping after eating was usually a pretty easy task. If there was no planned activity, the Mason family would spend most of the day napping. Napping was usually far more prevalent during rainy days, such as this one. Normally, the Mason family would watch TV, but since the weather was so nice, they had planned to sleep 1 or 2 hours after dinner. If it was after 0, they would sleep had learned from experience that going to sleep after eating caused indigestion. Whenever she from her side to her right, her stomach would turn, bringing all the food out to her throat. At other times, it would trigger some acid refluxes. The children ate dinner and were put to bed. Lucero was on her crib while Euphrasia slept beside his mother. He had his own tiny bed, but he preferred the larger bed since he had more arm room. Lucero slept hugging a little monkey plush her grandmother had given her. According to Irina, the monkey liked to drink milk. Lucero was partial to the plushie, but she had memories of seeing Euphrasia with it when he was 2 years old. Lucero did not mind the hand-me-down plush since it was still in good condition. It served as a small pillow. Around 3:15 a.m., the rain died down. The only sound heard was that of the wind. The wind suddenly picked up, causing the bedsheets to fly out. The window started rattling. Lucero, who was a light sleeper, yelled, "Angelica!" With a start, Angelica awoke, not knowing why Lucero was yelling. Euphrasia rolled off the bed and landed on the floor all in terror. He crawled quickly under the bed. As for Lucero, she got into a fetal position and she hid her head under the large pillow. It was then when the window smashed. Angelica covered her face with her hands, and she received a nasty cut on one of her hands. Angelica ran and grabbed Lucero while Euphrasia was fetched by Irina, who had just woken up. For the rest of the night, the four of them spent their time in the bathroom. The bathroom had only one small window, which was open. Lucero had the pillow from her bedroom still on her hand, and she was using it more as a shield than a pillow. Euphrasia was inside the tub with his eyes wide open. He was watching the window like a hawk. He had his hands to his face in case he had to protect himself from glass. Irina would have liked to barricade the window, but without it, they risked running out of oxygen. Around dusk, Eduardo was making his way back home. He was not too thrilled by the sight of the downed electric pole. He circled around the block until he found a different route back into his apartment. His alternative route brought him through a flooded street. With water up to his knees, Eduardo struggled his way back home. His night shift in the hospital had been uneventful. The entire place was made of solid concrete, and it resembled a fortress instead of a hospital. The windows were small and impact resistant. There were bars on them as well. This gave the hospital the look and feel of a prison. Then again, windows with bars were pretty common architecture feature in Cuba. Aside from having small windows, the hospital actually had an air conditioner. It was used to keep viruses down. Most viruses and bacteria tended to reproduce a lot with higher temperature. As such, for sanitation purposes, the hospitals were allowed to have an air conditioner. It was common to just have random people in the waiting room who just wanted to cool off for a bit. At times, some people felt like getting examined while they were there. Medicine was free in so much that you did not have to pay for it. You still paid indirectly for medicine in the form of poverty wages. While Angelica had spent a healthy night, Eduardo had a mellowed out type of day. He had spent it joking with the other night duty doctors. He would read the headlines and then he would start making up bogus news. He said it in such a convincing fashion that the fellows could not help but believe him. He would also prank the trainees by playing dead in the morgue. Whenever a kid who was not in on the job would pass by, Eduardo would make strange noises, or he would sit up suddenly. Eduardo was quite surprised indeed when he heard from his colleague that a tornado had passed by. He had not heard much of it because he was fooling around in the morgue. A couple of windows did break, but thankfully it only occurred in the empty room. The rest of the night he spent cleaning up the debris or tending to the regulars. Around 4 p.m., the injured people started arriving. It seemed like it was going to be quite a busy day indeed. He would have stayed for an extra shift to help, but he was worried about his apartment. For this reason, as soon as his shift ended, he went home. He was surprised and alarmed to see his wife all bandaged up. She had gotten some nasty cuts on her arms and on her right hand. He examined her tourniquets over the top. The scratch on the palm had been superficial, though Irina had required that Lucero remove for her a small shadow glass. Why had Angelica asked Lucero? Well, because she had snake blood. Lucero had a good hand-eye coordination. She was quite deliberate with most things she did with her hands, from drawing stick figures to cutting paper. She dexterously removed the tiny shot using the tool her mother had given her. As for Irina, she was no help at all because she could not keep her hands from trembling. One needs a steady hand for any type of delicate work. Irina never remembered an instance when Lucero called her mother grandma. It was always Irina this or Irina that. She was quite disrespectful little bride. Aside from... This was part of the reason why Angelica smoked. She was trying to cope with the tensions of being alive and with the tension on not having nicotine running through her veins. Smoking is a hard habit to quit. Alright, we made it to chapter 5. Rolling. Hello, my name is Teresita Blanco, the RC sister, and today I'm going to read you La Casa, written by me. And we're in chapter 5, Isabel la Católica. The following days, the family spent in cleaning up the apartment. When it was made presentable, the permutation process started. The negotiations at first started with one party, and then several others got involved. After much back and forth, the family acquired the house in Isabel la Católica. The apartment was gotten by a deaf lady who did not mind the sirens, and so each party acquired what their hearts desired. To help furnish the new house, a lot of the old stuff was acquired from the house in La Palma. The library, for one thing, was transferred to the new house, in addition to two of the beds and the living room furniture. The TV also belonged to the Mason family. During the day of the move, Angelica noticed a fallen chandelier. It had fallen on top of one of the beds they had kept. They had a repair, and they moved the bed to the side to avoid having the chandelier on top of anyone's feet. Aside from the chandelier incident, the house did not show any other noticeable problem. It had gotten some water damage from the hurricane, but it had been superficial. The walls were made of bricks and concrete, cladded with stucco, which gave the white walls an interesting texture. It had been smooth over the years, with each new layer of paint. The materials of the wall and the nature of the wood meant that nothing got rotten. Those old colonial buildings have been made to last. They do not fall over easily in comparison to the cardboard boxes that the people in the States call home. The last owner of the house was a fellow named Horacio Olivera, age 81. His wife had died and his daughter had left to the United States decades ago. He barely saw her, and his drunken son was not very much good company. Eventually he got sick. It was during his illness that he met Dahlia. She was an elegant mulatto of extreme beauty and black hair, and her mother was Chinese, and her father was from Senegal. This 48-year-old lady found the old man quite vulnerable and useful. It got to such a point that whatever money Horacio received from the state, he would spend it on his dead little Dahlia. Since her father was starving because of his lover, Horacio's daughter Clarita started sending money to her cousin. Her cousin would then buy provisions and not give cash directly to her father. Since he no longer had cash to spend on that, he was making the effort to sell his house. Before he actually got around to doing so, he was found dead. There was no serious investigation in this matter since he was 81. The coroner simply eyeballed the corpse and ruled it natural causes. It was still common belief that Horacio's family had killed him to keep him from selling the house to give money to his lover. This may be murder house was the one that the Masons moved into. After commuting from the apartment and the house from La Palma. After her father died, Clarita started sending money to Cuba. The day the move was concluded also happened to be the eve of Lucero's birthday. Lucero was born on the same day as Angelica, November the 1st. On October 31st, the family moved the last item and they gave the key to the apartment to the new owner. This was the first time that the children set foot in the new house. Lucero looked at the bars of the living room, the familiar couch and curtains, the TV, and the large bookshelf and the rocking chair. Lucero sat down on the rocking chair and started to be pensive. Whenever she got moody like that, it was best not to engage her. As for his father, he started to explore the house. He went to the living room, to the concrete garden, to the kitchen and the back garden. He then asked his father, "Where are the rooms?" "Over there," said Eduardo, pointing to a closed door. Eufrasio tried to open the door, and he removed the lock, but the door did not budge. He He then locked the door and tried opening it, thinking that he had opened it wrong. Eduardo in the end came to the door and pulled at it. With some degree of effort, the stupid door slowly opened, and then very quickly. It was an interesting quirk about the doors. You first have to pull hard and then to get them to budge. Eduardo made a mental note to grease out the door. Even with his future precaution, the doors continued to behave as they always did. The previous owner of the house was aware of the problem. This was part of the reason why he never bothered to close the doors in any other bedroom. It was too much of a bother for someone his age to do a force of any kind. The bedroom arrangement was made thus. Irina had the bedroom nearest to the kitchen. The parents and Lucero had the middle room, and Eufrasio had the bedroom close to the living room. He was given the room because it was common for Eufrasio to wake up super early to watch the 4 a.m. cartoons. Wherever in the world would they have kids shows at such an ungodly hour was a matter of some debate. The shows at the hour sometimes featured animated movies from Japan. Just the night before, Eufrasio had seen Messenger C. He was itching to see if there was going to be more robot-related movies. For this reason, he asked his father, "Which room is mine?" "This one," said his father, opening the twin doors in the living room that led to the child's bedroom. The decoration did not give a hint to the age of the occupants, since most of the decoration stayed behind. The bed was a tapestry featuring a forest and a river. There were 2 armories and a large glass shelf filled with encyclopedias. At the foot of the bed there was one of those old wooden coffins that the family was always lugging around. This one in particular had all of the wedding dresses worn by Angelica's great-great-great-grandmother. One of them lived long enough to see Lucero's first steps. As he tried out his large 2-person bed over the top, Eufrasio lay down on the left part of the bed and went to sleep. By now, Eufrasio had gotten his daughter under control. He had gotten over because his family did not draw too much attention to it, and he also took speech therapy. Eufrasio did not go to sleep in the middle of the bed because Lucero liked to roam at night. Back in the old apartment, she would leave her crib to go to Eufrasio's bed, and then she would go to Irina's room before settling down beside her parents. It was very rare that she would sleep in the same bed for the entire night. As for the source of Lucero's moodiness, she was not too happy about losing her crib. Her parents had gotten her a normal bed. They had given her the bed of one of Angelica's cousins they had given her crib to one of Angelica's cousins who was with child. Angelica figured that she was not going to need a crib ever again thanks to her husband. After Eufrasio went to sleep at 4 p.m., Eduardo went to the library to pick up a book to read. He did not read it, however. Instead, he focused on the little child. He wondered what was going on inside that little head. There was indeed cause for concern. A week from now, Lucero was going to begin school. Eufrasio was to return to school. When Lucero was told that she was going to go to school, like her brother, she did not seem to please. This displeasure only showed ripples on the surface. They were only noticeable by the flat, accurate tone she gave in all of her responses. In the end, to give the mother and grandmother a chance to start the birthday preparation, Eduardo said to Lucero, "Want to go for a walk?" "Fine, sure, whatever," said Lucero, getting up. The two walked outside to give a cursory view to the new neighborhood. All the houses in each block were fused, one next to the other. Each front porch was separated by a fence. The front of the atrium in this house had 2 sitting spots, and in front of each there were some red flowers and spiky thorns. Eduardo took his daughter by the hand to go for the walk. He walked in such a fashion as to be on the side of the road at all times. He imagined that in the eventuality of being run over, he could serve as a human shield. Such silly notions of self-sacrifice were pretty common for Eduardo. They were all born from the guilt of deciding for his better half. The pair walked the neighborhood, and they noted a couple of autobots here and there. The most interesting of the fellow was their next-door neighbor. When they first saw him, he was punching a wall while in his underwear. From time to time, he would make some bizarre yelling sound. To Eduardo, the man looked like a crazy person. Crazy people were common in Cuba. They were usually looked after by family members. From time to time, they would go to the madhouse Mazorra for electroshock therapy before being returned home. The electroshock usually kept them even out for at least 4 months. Then there was the medication. Those who did live in the escena asylum were only there because they had no living family members. These people either became homeless or died because of neglect. As for the loco nut, he was mimicking the moves of Bruce Lee. Since Eduardo was not familiar with a martial art, he mistook the yelling of the neighbor as noises typically made by crazy people. Lucero gave a cursory, disdainful look at her neighbor, and the neighbor looked back at the girl, and he noticed the maiden's icy stare, which made him shiver. Her look reminded him of his commanding officer, a man who imagined that all people he met were beneath him. The first impression of Lucero was accurate. She typically looked down on everyone, including her own parents. For her, there was no one that was her equal. This is not to say she detested people. Rather, she could not relate to anyone, not even to her brother. It would take at least 2 decades for her to open out to her family, and to even get along with them. Even then, she only had share of what she thought or desired. Eduardo and Lucero turned a corner. Eventually, the two found themselves at the committee. Every neighborhood had a committee, with a symbolic meetings and voting. It was designed to make the locals feel like their petty thoughts and opinions mattered. Eduardo never bothered to go because he realized the pointlessness of the exercise. At the moment, there was nobody at the committee, aside from a sign. It was just a regular home that had been repurposed for public assemblies. At the other side of the block, behind the house, the pair saw a concrete garden. The children were playing there. Smiling, Eduardo said, "Look, Lucerito, dear, a park. You like playing at the park?" "Yes," said Lucero flatly. "Do you want me to push you on the swing?" asked Eduardo. "I can push myself just fine, thank you," said Lucero. She looked through the things, and she picked one that had a stable iron chair and a straight iron bar. There were other swings made of iron sheets, but she felt that the iron one was a better one. From then on, whenever she visited the park, Lucero always picked the same swing. One of the children beside her was standing on the swing, picking up high. Lucero started in college. She decided to play it safe, and she took a bit of info and started swinging very slowly. Eduardo and Ian came to give her a slight push. It was then when he noticed that the back garden was visible from the park. It was just behind a very low concrete fence. Eduardo thought it convenient. He waved at Irina, who was inspecting the back garden, and she waved back at him without much enthusiasm. When he turned around, he saw that Lucero was picking up quite the height. He was horrified when he saw the girl jump from the swing. She nimbly landed on her feet with her arms spread about for balance. She then proceeded to try to stop the swing in order to try to jump from it again. Lucero was fond of jumping games. Back in the old apartment, she would jump down the stairs. She would try to land from as high as many steps as she could. She did not jump from the top step to the mid-floor. Rather, she tried one step and then another before jumping down. She knew that 5 steps was her limit. The one time she had tried 5, she had miscalculated her landing and had fallen on her behind. The parents were not aware of this little jumping game of hers. Francis didn't know, and he always recommended prudence. Still, he would engage in it whenever playing with his little sister. And he also played hopscotch with her. While the regular game used 1 stone, the siblings added more stones as the game progressed for added challenge. The winner was usually the fellow who could jump from number 10 back to number 1. After hanging out in the park for a bit, father and daughter were summoned back to the house by Irina. On the way back, Eduardo heard the barking of dogs. They relaxed somewhat when they noticed that it was just a poor man and his dogs. The man looked so thin that Eduardo felt sorry for the fellow. When he came home, he asked Irina to make a plate for the starving neighbor. Normally, the leftovers were put away for later. Still, neither Francis nor Lucero liked eating of food, and so it was decided to offer the food to the poor man. The man with his dogs was known as Flint. When Horacio saw his grandmother giving food to the man, he imagined that Flint was Saint Lazaro in the flesh. He certainly did look the part, with a beard and the thin tan complexion. Flynn did not eat all of the food right away. away. Rather, he took it home for his wife and daughter. Since this humble family did not have anyone in the United States, they had to make do with a basic basket, which was just enough, which just gave you enough to be undernourished. As for the dogs, Flint's curse had not been the ones that barked. Flint only went out to beg with his house because of the abandoned construction site a few blocks over. Anyone who was not in a large group usually got attacked by a pack of strays. One time, the cops had tried to handle the situation, but the dogs were nowhere to be found. One night, when a lone cop was walking home, he was maimed by the dogs. Ever since then, none of the locals had tried to do something about the strays living in the abandoned construction site. During the full moons, the barking of the dogs. Alright, we're continuing with chapter 5 of La Casa. Reading by me, Teresita Blanco. One night when a lone cop was walking home, he was maimed by the dogs. Ever since then, none of the locals had tried to do something about the strays living in the abandoned construction site. During the full moons, the barking of the dog was heard all over the neighborhood. During the first night at the house, the moon was full, as it is proper for Halloween. Efracio awoke to go eat dinner a bit earlier than he had planned. He found the barking of the dogs a bit disconcerting since they fell nearby. He sighed when he noticed the bars on the windows. Only very small dogs could get inside. He languidly rose from the bed, and when he looked down to find his sandals, he saw a white shadow scrape across the floor. He did not hear or make a sound. He turned on the nearby lamp. He thought it had been a bit too big to be a roach. He nervously looked beneath the bed to see what it was, and he saw nothing. For indeed, there was no living creature inside the room at the moment aside from Eufrasio. The lights from the lamp flickered a bit, and since Eufrasio had seen a lot of horror movies featuring flickering lights, he knew that it was silly to imagine that he could see dead people. In the end, he concluded that it was his eyes playing tricks on him. The following morning, it was Angelica and Lucero's birthday. The mother had ordered a 2-tier cake with plenty of frosting. The man from the cake shop did not know why Angelica wanted so much frosting. But since he was a commission dog, he did what he was asked. On top of the cake, there was the shape of a bunny in white frosting. With pink letters, it spelled the name Happy Birthday, Angelica and Lucero. When the girl awoke, they sang her Las Mañanitas by Vicente Fernández. This San Buena, so this is the little morning to which King David used to sing. Since this is the day of your saint, we sing you this song. Wake up, my dear, wake up. Look, the sun has risen, and the little birds are singing, since the moon has gone to sleep. From there, the family transitioned into the birthday song most people are familiar with. Lucero was dressed in her Sunday's best. She was putting her favorite print dress with frills and laces. It was starting to get a little small for her, but Lucero did not mind. It was her favorite dress after all. This one she rarely wore because she wanted to wear it for longer periods of time in order to keep it nice and preserved. By now, the shoulders felt a little tight. It was only a matter of time till it no longer zipped up. Eufrasio wore his best green tantum with his pants, and since the guests were coming, the situation called for wearing pants. Pants were only employed in important social occasions or when visiting an important public place like the hospital, school, or a church. It wasn't frowned upon for children to wear as little as possible because of the weather. Since it was a birthday party, the parents prepared little boxes with snacks. The snacks included croquettes, bread with paste, guatake, and a cold macaroni salad. The guatake was a type of cake that was made specifically for those boxes. They usually had strawberry frosting. Since Eufrasio loved buñuelos, the box included some as well. There were dough pastries in the shape of infinity. They were also covered in anise caramel. The dough was made of cassava and malanga, and it is to die for. Other noteworthy fruit included chicharrón or pork crackling served with lemon. For drinks, the children had Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola was a rare treat indeed, not easily acquired. The smell of the food alone was enough to get all of the local children to attend. The parents also came in order to get some free food. As for the family member, the only family member who lived nearby was Ricardo. He was Eduardo's half-brother. from his father's side. He lived a block over with his wife and his only daughter. He made sporadic appearances here and there, only to be somewhat of a nuisance. The last time Eduardo had seen his brother, Ricardo had come to take his fan. Why did Ricardo take the fan? Nobody knows. Angelica had been with Charlotte at the moment, and it didn't suit her to have any type of argument. Angelica regretted the fact that the bastard Ricardo lived so close to her. Still, he was family, and thus she had to tolerate the man, because family must stick together and all that type of nonsense. This was the first time Lucero and Eufrasio had met their cousin Gianna Maria. Gianna Maria was the same age as Eufrasio, only that she was shorter than Lucero. To Lucero, Gianna Maria was like a living doll. She had porcelain white skin, blue eyes, and curly blonde hair. She reminded Lucero of the Barbie that her neighbor owned and that she had not been allowed to play with. Her fair complexion was a sore spot for Ricardo, who fancied that his daughter Gianna Maria was not his own. Since she was so shorter and she resembled a lot, Lucero warmed up to her cousin pretty quickly. Eufrasio thought well of his cousin. He thought that his sister was a good judge of character. If Lucero got along with Gianna Maria, it meant that she was a good person. Among the other people of the party there were Eufrasio's good friend, the penguin and Yuri. The penguin's real name was G-Wood, but everyone just called him the penguin because of his sharp nose and his straight black hair. The trio had met in school 2 years ago, and since they were regularly bullied, they formed a bit of a posse to fight back. Still, they were 3 against 7, so they were not making any significant progress against their bullies. The penguin was doing well, but since he had a low meat diet, he was not putting on any muscle. As for Yuri, he had gotten some large food from the state. He had altered them to add a metal plating inside the shoe. This would give his kids an extra huff. The bully problem was a work in process, and it was a localized problem. Some of the rest were even at Lucero's birthday party. Under the watchful of their parents, they behaved themselves. Angelica was aware of the bully problem. She hadn't been bullied herself back in school, and she thought that she could bribe the rest with food and games by having them feel included. Back when she had been in school, Angelica had bullied others because of food reasons. She figured that if Eufrasio's enemies were fed, they would back away. As for Eufrasio, he was dealing with his bully problem by raising his tolerance to pain. He was trained by having his sister kick him over and over again, and she at other times would scratch and bite him. He had always instructed not to hurt his sister, and so his sister's behavior had gotten a little out of hand over a short couple of months. The party itself went uneventful, and a few kids suffered a minor injury when a donut fell on his feet, and another person had a plate fall on their feet. The games played by the children were tag and hide and seek. There were plenty of places to hide, and Lucero was lost from sight for half an hour when she hid inside the bookshelf. She was eventually discovered by her father, who was looking for her to cut the cake. Picking her up, he brought her to the kitchen table to face the cake. They sang to her happy birthday, and they took a couple of photos. Since the films were hard to come by, Eduardo had to make them count. And mostly took about 12 photos of the party. In each, Lucero smiled and winked, because she thought that it made her look cute. The party was concluded around 8 p.m. All the children went home, and then it fell on the adults the task of cleaning up the mess. As with most large visits, the single non-flushing toilet had suffered the most abuse. With soap and Clorox, Angelica was dexterously cleaning the bathroom. Irina was sweeping the confetti from the piñata. Eufrasio was watching TV while sipping a soda. Since he had drank soda, he was not going to be sleeping anytime soon. It was Friday, so why did it matter? He could sleep a little late and still make it to Sunday school. Sitting to his left was Gianna Maria, and to his right was Lucero. Lucero asked Gianna Maria, "Shouldn't you be going home?" "I can stay a little longer. My parents don't care either way," said Gianna Maria. "Whatever, dude," said Lucero, putting on one of the sofa pillows close to her face. Normally she would be in the rocking chair. Still, since they were watching a scary movie, she did not want to face it alone. They were seeing it on a VHS tape. Some sadistic bastard had gifted Lucero the phantasm. Gianna Maria was only half paying attention to the movie. She was looking through one of the doctor's books. It featured photos of genetic malformity. Her father was more used to horror movies. He would catch a couple from time to time at Yuri's home. His father had a home theater with a projector and everything. He would charge a pittance for people to come see whatever he had on. Yuri's father offered a cheaper alternative to going to the Cine de Praga. About 10 p.m., Eduardo said to Gianna Maria, "I'm taking you home." "Fine," said Gianna Maria with an air of resignation. "Fine." The little lamb being led to the slaughter, Eduardo walked the girl home. The two did not say much to each other. Gianna Maria was afraid of Eduardo. The reason was somewhat rather stupid. When Gianna Maria was wrong, she was visiting Eduardo and Angelica with her father, who was there to take their fan. The girl saw a tiny porcelain piano. She went to touch one of the keys, and to mess with her, Eduardo put it on a scary face and he said, "Don't." The suddenness of it made the girl start crying. Ever since then, she was a little on edge whenever she was near Eduardo. Eduardo had not been to his brother's house in quite a bit. He was both surprised and a little disappointed when he saw the state of the house. A couple of years back, Eduardo had given his brother a large part of land and some money and building materials to have him build himself a home. Eduardo's brother, Ricardo, had used the cement to build a stupidly large foundation. It was the type of foundation one found in a skyscraper. After using up most of the cement, all he was able to do was build a bathroom, a skinny hallway, a kitchen, and a single bedroom. The rest of the land was being employed to house a birdhouse. Ricardo made his money by fixing television and selling the birds he caught. He was supposedly in the construction process. Still, all he did was for his daughter to shovel dirt from one part of the garden to another. Such pointless tasks were enough to drive one to insanity. And indeed, Gianna Maria was suffering from delusional psychosis. She would block out of surprise all the time that her father had beaten her within an inch of her life. And when asked about him, she would always speak of him with the utmost praise that nobody believed. This was the only way she maintained a happy disposition, by being in denial of her situation. Eduardo was relieved to see that Ricardo was passed out drunk on a chair in the garden. After delivering the girl, he left without looking back. Along the way, he passed an abandoned construction site. He heard the barking of dogs. This made Eduardo run. Since he ran, a pack of dogs started to follow, but only until he reached the end of the block. The strays never lingered past their territory. The end of the chapter.
Cool.
Are we going?
Mm-hmm.
My name is Teresita Blanco, the Earth's sister, and I'm going to read to you La Casa, written by me. We're in chapter 6, Silver Eye. A week passed on eventfully. Irina had seen the strange white shade a couple of times. For some reason, it made an appearance a lot in her room. Since she believed in Santeria and all that type of and about ghosts, she naturally assumed that it was a ghost of Horatio. She did an exorcism using other fellow using a fish and some grasses. When she was done, she placed the spell components in a bag and she left it in a street that had 4 corners. When she came to the corner, she noted all the suspicious looking bags. She turned around and tried a different corner a couple of blocks away. In one passed through the street while the bags were there. The bag locked, vibes or ghosts were picked up by another. A Santeria exorcism did not get rid of the problem, rather it relocated it to another house. A more permanent solution could be done, but she would have to make a cake, and the family was a bit short of cash after the birthday party. Irina returned home to find Lucero in her rocking chair. It was around 5 a.m. in the morning, and Lucero was a bit of an early bird. Smiling benevolently, Irina asked, "Are you ready for school?" "We will see when we get there," said Lucero, petting her monkey plush thoughtlessly. Much to Lucero's chagrin, all her birthday presents had been school-related. She had gotten a backpack, the writing utensils, linen, black blank papers, pencils, erasers, and crayons. The backpack was purple and it had a chair bearer for decoration. The girl also had a small blue purse which was to house her food. After drinking her milk and barely touching her eggs, Lucero was ready for school. Eufrasio dreaded having to finally go to school with his sister. For some reason, he could not shake the feeling that the girl was going to have a major tantrum. She had been particularly violent the day before during their combat training. She had even drawn some blood when she scratched him with her razor-sharp nails. The combat training was put on hold by the mother, Angelica. Since she was tired of seeing Lucero fighting with her brother all the time, she smacked their heads together before saying, "Now get along. If you fight with each other again, I will do the same thing." Instantly feeling guilty, Angelica then went outside to smoke in the garden. After calming her down a bit, she said, "Eufrasio, if your sister hits you, you have my permission to hit her back. But only hit her as hard as she hits you." "I don't wanna," said Eufrasio. "But you have my permission," said Angelica. Lucero was panting all the while. Eventually, she extended her hand to her brother and she said, "Let's not fight ever again." Eufrasio then said, "I still need a way of getting stronger." "You should ask the weirdo from Death Note to give you some fighting tips. I heard he was a karate man," suggested Lucero. "I guess," stuttered Eufrasio. Eufrasio resolved to ask the fellow after returning from school, and depending on how the day went. Since Eduardo had the night shift, he was the one who took Lucero and Eufrasio to school. Angelica took her bag and she left for her consultation. She was a bit reluctant to see one of her patients today. It was everything that her patient ever told Angelica was just awful. Just recently, she had told Angelica that she was very lucky. That she felt very lucky. The patient felt lucky because her daughter was now working as a prostitute. As such, the patient no longer needed to worry about money anymore. Prostitution was technically illegal, but the cops barely bothered to deal with that type of crime, since it contributed to the tourist money that arrived in Cuba. When she arrived to the consultation, Angelica was relieved to hear that her patient had dropped dead. How she died? Well, during one of the blackouts, she had suffered a fainting fit. When the doctor came to check up on her, she was shocked to know that she had no pulse. The patient had always prided herself on having excellent health, but the no pulse thing didn't inspire much confidence. The patient was indeed alive, and after checking the pulse on her wrist, it yielded results. Still, the fact that the stethoscope had not detected any sounding above well. In the end, it was discovered that the patient had a tumor in her chest. She was dead within 2 days. As for the patient's daughter, she moved to the Orient with her cousin. Back at home, Irina was busying herself with the house chores. The house would always be completely open and doors, windows, and all. It was then when the cleaning started, with the sweeping and the mopping. This was followed by the polishing of the silverware. From the old house, Irina had taken her bed some silver goblets that had been passed down. The children were currently using them to eat gelatin. It gave the gelatin a faint metallic taste. If she remembered, she would take a bath. If Angelica had taken track of this bathing product, Irina could easily go a week without showering. The walk to the school was peaceful enough. The father and children passed by a row of houses facing a bunch of large pine trees. Under bars, they had a lot of caterpillars. The crown of the tree was so thick that barely any light entered. It almost seemed like nighttime. Eduardo heard a bit of panting. Turning around, he noticed a stray staring at him, like a stray dog. Eduardo neither disliked nor hated dogs. Still, he thought that the stray problem was getting out of hand. Even with the homeless people occasionally eating a couple of dogs, there was still a large stray population. When Eduardo saw the dog, his heart started racing. The adrenaline made the dog growl and start barking. Since Eduardo never had much dealing with dogs, he did not know that he had to maintain his scent in order to avoid getting attacked. Lucero, dressed in a little uniform, said to her father, "Carry me." Eduardo did as she asked. As for Horacio, he clung near his father. He felt that the dog was sizing him up and not for clothing. The uniform worn by Horacio and Lucero were pretty similar. Lucero had a red skirt, white, and a white button-up shirt. The skirt was held by red suspenders that crossed her back like an X. And since Lucero was starting school, she did not sport a kerchief around her neck. Since Francis was in a lower tier of the grade, his kerchief was blue. Those in higher grades were red. The only difference in uniforms came in the form of shoes and hair ornaments of the girls. As with everything in the world, the boys were not allowed to wear caps. The primary school was called Antonio Maceo. It was close to the Provincial Museum of History. Just a couple of blocks over was the Cathedral of San Rosendo. Antonio Maceo was an important guerrilla leader who helped free Cuba from Spain. Due to his skin color, he was known as the Bronze Titan. He died in action after Jose Marti talked him into fighting the Spaniards a second time. Most of the schools in Cuba were named after war heroes who fought the Spanish crown. The school named after Maceo had a large iron bar fence. All the classrooms faced a large concrete garden. At the furthest end of the school, there was a couple of large shaded trees, as is to be expected, and there was no air conditioning. The windows were all open and they had bars. This gave the ochre sapphire school a nice prison-like feel to it. As soon as the children entered within, the door was locked behind them. Eduardo kissed both his children on the cheek as is the Cuban fashion. He then said to both of them, "I will be leaving now. Have fun on your first day of school." Then turning to Lucero, he said, "And you behave yourself, you hear?" Eduardo took a couple of steps, but he felt a heavy burden on his feet. Francis, who was not too keen on seeing his sister stand through, went to the assembly line of his classroom to be near the ever-watchful eye of his teacher. He hoped that the commotion might keep him out of sight of his arch-nemesis. Lucero crying said, "Dad, don't leave me here." Pulling at her arms a little, Eduardo said firmly, "Let go, Lucero." "No, Papi, no, take me home. I don't want to be here," said Lucero. The grade school stood and started laughing, and some of the older kids lingered a bit to see the commotion. After a 10-minute fit, Eduardo said to his daughter, "Fine, I will stay with you a bit to show you that it's not a big deal. Okay?" Still crying, Lucero said, "Okay." Lucero was not truly sad or scared. She just hated being taken out of her home. She hoped against hope that by being a bit louder she could get her way, as it had occurred many times. Still, school seemed like a different matter, like something serious, like whenever she had to go to the hospital. While Lucero stood in line with her father, some of the children made silly comments, which she stoically ignored. Just as she was good at fake crying, she was also adept at tuning out the world around her. She did not respond, rather she stared back blankly, with the look of someone who was thinking of killing you. It wasn't her fault that she had such a kill face. Her serious look just had a way of making people feel uncomfortable. Depending on people's mood, they interpreted Lucero's poker face in a variety of ways. Some imagined that she was sad, others angry, while many thought she looked bored or serious. As for her father, Eduardo thought Lucero was looking rather angry. Before all the classes began, the children had to sing the national anthem. They also had to swear to be just like El Che. El Che needs no introduction. Most of the outside world is familiar with the myth of the dude. The man was a murderous bastard who was killed by Fidel Castro for stealing the spotlight. Oh wait, the guy he had killed was Camilo Cienfuegos. Same difference. Fidel Castro was never a man who liked sharing with his fellow man. And even when he demanded that everyone else share his wealth with him. He wanted all the focus to be on him, so much that he didn't even have a first lady. Everything in Cuba just boils down to charisma. You do not get far in life without being charismatic. Eduardo was charismatic, and so he got away with many things anything that would have landed other worms in jail. This was part of the reason why the director didn't question why Eduardo was there standing behind his daughter. After Eduardo escorted Lucero to his classroom, he took his leave. Lucero watching go, none to please. The teacher was feeling magnanimous, so she allowed a lot more liberties to the children that day. Normally, she would just box the ear of any brat that got out of line. Now, instead, she slapped them in the back of the head. One girl in front had gotten her ear pulled so many times that it had grown significantly larger than the other. Since Lucero was the tallest girl in the group, she sat on the back. Seating was done based on height. Lucero sat with another girl who was even taller. She had repeated grade school, if you can believe it. There was no child left behind nonsense in Cuba. If you didn't pass the exam, you never moved on to the next grade. It was as simple as that. Getting past grade could involve learning how to read and write cursive. Lucero didn't know how to read but not how to write. The first cursive lesson involved practicing writing your name. Lucero frowned when she saw her name written for her on a card. It was the first time she had seen her last name and her mother's maiden name. In Cuba, people used two last names. The mother also kept her family name. The days rolled rather slowly. When Lucero looked outside, she saw the older kids were playing sports. One of the baseballs flew through the window and it struck her in the belly. The kid who was Eufrazio's nemesis came to pick up the ball. He rubbed Lucero's belly and he said, "See, you're fine." Lucero did not respond. She only narrowed her eyes at him for a second before turning to look at her name. While the other girls were practicing cursive, Lucero had not done any work. Eufrazio's nemesis was called Giovanni. He had been born on the same day as Eufrazio, and for the last 2 years, Angelica had been celebrating Giovanni's birthday along with Eufrazio. When Giovanni saw Lucero glaring at him, a shiver ran down his spine. He moved away from her. He had heard from his grandmother that Lucero had very angry saints. Anyone who did her harm always got a broken leg. Giovanni wondered if an accidental strike was enough of a reason for the eventuality of his injury. To avoid this thing, Giovanni decided to be a little more careful. Alright, we'll continue later. Now we Hello, my name is Teresita Blanco, the artist's sister, and today we're continuing with chapter 6 of La Casa, or the house, written by me. The time for lunch eventually came for the small children. Normally, the teacher had the students sit in a circle and eating share their lunch together. While looking at the lunch bags over the top, she noticed a baby bottle. She had the children head out and she left Lucero there. Pointing to the milk bottle, she said, "The kids are going to eat you alive if they see you drinking from a bottle. You can drink it as it is now, but tomorrow bring the milk in a regular bottle." Lucero nodded in response. The teacher frowned when she noticed that the girl had done nothing all day. She figured that the girl was a tough nut to crack, but at least she was quiet. The teacher preferred silent student over a noisy, disruptive child any day of the week. When the teacher left the room, Lucero drank her bottle quickly. She noticed the time and she figured she had about 20 minutes to escape. Silently, she tiptoed across her classroom. Eventually, she walked towards the entrance. Some of the teachers and students noticed her, but her nonchalant behavior did not raise any eyebrows. They figured she had a specific charge or something. Lucero saw some of the students leaving the school, and she got in line behind them. The door was eventually open, and Lucero was free. She trailed behind them for a bit before doubling back and starting to make her way home. She ran a bit, but then she decided to walk the rest of the way home. She was already pretty far away from the school, and when she got to the park, she sat down a bit in front of the bus of Jose Marti. She ate her bread and drank from a small bottle of water she had before continuing the rest of the way. Eventually, she reached a block that had large trees with caterpillars. She then heard the barking of the dog. She saw a girl her age running toward her. Getting the hint, Lucero ran back, crossing the street and nearly getting ran over by a bike. She found the only tree that she could climb and she perched up there. The girl noticed Lucero on top of the tree and she also climbed up there. Moments later, about 4 dogs crowded under the tree with their barking and snapping of teeth. The girl on top of the tree with Lucero was wearing a blue kerchief. She kept saying to the dog, "Shoo, scram!" Lucero broke a nearby branch and she threw it. One of the dogs went away and brought back the stick. Lucero reached down and she took the stick, and then she threw the stick once again. This time a couple of more dogs followed after it. All the while, the girl observed Lucero with mild amusement. She said to herself, "Why didn't I think of that?" "Because it is not going to work," said Lucero. She added, "See, only the former domestic dog chased the stick. The others are not going to leave us alone." Your intimidation tactic might work if only you could hurt your nerve," explained Lucero. "That's easier said than done," complained the girl. "I have an idea," said Lucero. Lucero started yawning, and the dogs yawned as well. She then nestled on her branch with her purse, and she pretended to fall asleep. The dogs turned their heads from Lucero and started focusing on the other girl. The girl mimicked Lucero's action, but she could not calm herself. The dogs could smell her adrenaline and heart pumping. They stopped barking and they just sat down on the floor, wagging their tails happily. Eventually, they heard more barking in a different part of the park. The dogs, hearing the excitement of the peers, started running. The girl beside Lucero left the tree and started running back home. Lucero followed behind at a much slower pace. She was tired and she decided to just power walk instead. As long as the girl was within her sight, Lucero could find her way back home. Despite taking this road many times, Lucero could not remember the way back. The only thing she did remember was that the girl was familiar. Lucero had met the girl on her birthday. After rattling her memory of it, Lucero remembered that she was called Jennifer, with a Y. It was one of the most common names at the time. Lucero knew about 5 other girls with the same name. This Jennifer was a year older than Lucero. She had black curly hair, cinnamon skin, and bright green eyes. She was in the regular habit of skipping classes. As for the dog, the impersonate person that had drawn their attention was an old man on a bike. He was not familiar with the stray problem in Isabel la Católica. I thought he had seemed like an easier target for Silver Eye. Silver Eye was the name that the children used to call the leader of the stray stray dog pack. He was a 7-year-old mixed breed dog. The strays in Cuba have been crossbreeding for more than 40 years. Most of them were medium height, with a medium face and numerous different colors. As for Silver Eye, he had gray color, with a strong muscle body similar to a bulldog. There was some greyhound in the mix. Still, the snout was medium-sized in length, and he had short, droopy ears. Despite his size, he was a nasty fellow. When he beat you, he did not let go. This was a testament to his bulldog great-grandfather. Most of the dogs in the park were somewhat related to them, so they shared the same speed. Whenever a stray incidentally bred with a pedigree dog, some of the strays became more dominant. During Silver Eye's time, his father had bred with an elegant greyhound that had been smuggled from the United States. When the owner saw that the lady had given birth to something that did not look like a greyhound, he was sent to the street. His fierce attitude allowed Silver Eye to rise up in the canine society. Now he was the alpha of that territory. He had the triple combination of being swift, strong, and cunning. Though from strictly eyeballing the dog, he did not look remotely intimidating. None of the humans knew where the stupid dog had come from. Before they had a normal problem with strays, but when Silver Eye took over the pack, the situation became intolerable. Since he had buried his tactics, the people in Isabel la Católica were always in suspense. Still, he was most common on the parks during the weekday mornings. The reason for that was that there were less people running about. It was easier to peg off humans if they were in lesser number. Neither Lucero nor Jennifer were aware of this trend, and so they were at the mercy of Silver Eye. But now Lucero was almost out of the territory of Silver Eye. Before she got out, she heard a growling behind her. Slowly she removed her backpack and she placed it before her like a shield. Behind her was old Silver. His mouth was red with fresh blood. Lucero took a step back and the dog took a step forward. She reached into her pocket and she took out a piece of bread she had not finished. Instead of throwing it at the dog, she held it out for him. Silver, who loved eating bread, drew a little closer. He licked the bread and he started nibbling at it. Lucero took her other hand and she petted the dog. The dog lowered his ear when he saw Lucero's hand drawing closer. He relaxed somewhat when he noticed it was a simple pat on the head. Stray dogs rarely receive kind treatment. It was always yelling and the throwing of rocks or sticks. Lucero pulled back the bread a bit and the dog followed after the meal. Eventually she placed it gingerly on the floor for Silver to eat. When she concluded this venture, she finished getting out of the park. She turned a corner on the block and then she stopped. As she rattled her brain a bit trying to remember the way home, she did not have to sing long for Jennifer came back for her. I thought you were dead, said Jennifer, taking her hand. I might have been, but I have a way with animals, just like one of those Disney princesses, said Lucero. Which one, Aurora, Cinderella, or Snow White? Asked Jennifer as they continued walking. I think Snow White. Mother said she wished for me in the same fashion as Snow White was wished for, said Lucero. I don't remember the wishing part. Then again, it's been ages since I've seen the movie, said Jennifer. I think it was in a book. Most of the ones in my house are pretty boring. One time I tried reading Peter Pan and Wendy, and I thought this was the book that inspired the movie. Anyhow, the book was boring, but it had nice pictures. I don't like reading books. I don't like reading books that don't have pictures. Why do you leave school? Asked Jennifer. Because it was my first day, said Lucero. Well, you haven't given it a proper chance. Once you get going there for a couple of weeks, you're bound to find a reason to avoid going there altogether. The boys and girls lift up your skirts whenever they get a chance. Some pull your hair, others take your books, and the teachers steal your lunch. I left because during this time of the month, the teachers get more aggressive than usual. But why can't I study from home? Asked Lucero, because, started thinking Jennifer. Eventually she came out with the answer that her mother told her, because Fidel Castro says so. Oh, I suppose that is a good reason as any, all things considered. She at least was pleased to know that it wasn't some arbitrary whim of her parents. Around the late afternoon, Angelica went to pick up Efracio. His day hadn't gone well. The teacher was making a big fuss over his calligraphy that seemed to get worse by the day. Efracio knew he needed glasses to see from across, but he was not keen on getting them. The reason was not bully related. Rather, he thought that his sight problem was something that would get better over time. By putting the paper on lens, he could at least make out somewhat what he wrote. The problem was a loss in accuracy. His mind was pretty distracted as a whole. He could not wait till next year for the three wise men to come. He wanted them to bring them an Atari. He had played it a couple of times in Yuri's house. Still, he wanted one that he could play at home. When it came time to leave, Horacio looked for his sister's classroom. She was not there. He guessed that it might occur, but he never thought that she would follow through with it. Lucero had always been impulsive, and her impulsive behavior had gotten her in trouble when she was younger due to her klepto tendency. Angelica put a stop to this by making Lucero swear by God that she would never steal again. If she ever did break her promise, God was going to smite her. Ever since then, Lucero did not steal anything, but she found ways of getting around her little promise. The promise said nothing about taking lost items or items that did not have an explicit owner. This was part of the reason why Lucero was always looking down when she walked. To this measure, she had found a couple of toy soldiers, some cards and crayons and marbles. Her favorite marble was a black one that she called Zorro. Sometimes they would play pretend using the marbles and toy soldiers. The Zorro TV show was being played at the time, so it was something that the children watched on a regular basis. It was oftentimes the parents would see the siblings fighting one another with sticks. The overall goal was to disarm the player. They had gotten many bruises in their fingers due to the nature of the game. After asking around, nobody seemed to be able to tell Efracio or Lucero's whereabouts. Eventually, he had no other choice but to face his mother without his sister. Angelica naturally gave him an earful. In the end, she had to concede the fact that due to the scheduling issue, it wasn't easy for Facio to lose track of his sister. Eventually, the two returned home and they found Lucero sitting on the porch waiting for them. The next door neighbor was keeping an eye on her. The one who seemed the most despondent was Lucero. She had hoped that Irina would have let her in. However, the neighbors told her that Irina had left on a short train with one of her clients. Both had gone to the bridge to place a lock there. It was a way of creating a binding. The client wanted to be with her lover forever, though she had Irina make for her an amarre or binding. The bridge had hundreds of locks with different mason designs. All had the same purpose. Irina was not too fond of bindings, in part because she knew that the Santos liked for love to happen naturally. You could bind a person to you, but like any prisoner, you could not make the person love you. Love is something that is given, not taken or demanded. It can only happen between two individuals who are truly free. This is at least what Irina believed. She was a bit of a romantic at times, always hoping to find her true love. As Irina saw the waters of the river pass by, she abstracted herself in the elusive idea. And as all people must wake up at some point to reality to survive. In this respect, Irina had a perfect balance of having her head in the clouds while having her feet firmly planted in the ground. The day rolled rather peacefully by. Most of the days in Cuba rode at a leisurely pace. At night, Eduardo came home to find his family together. He smiled when he noted that Eufrasia and Lucero were in one piece. The smell of roasted chicken was filling out every bedroom. The scent of chicken was a good sign. It was common for the Cuban government to relax its grip every once in a while. Eduardo's day had been pretty busy. After working 10 hours, he was finally able to return home around 9 p.m. Alright, we'll continue. I'll finish up this chapter soon in the next video. Bye bye. Hello. Let's put this on. Hello, my name is Teresita Blanco, the Earth's sister. And we're reading La Casa or The House by me, Teresita Blanco. So we're finishing up chapter 6. Eduardo's day had been pretty busy. After working for 10 hours, he was finally able to return home around 9 p.m. Things had been slow up until then. Suddenly, every woman in an 8-mile radius was giving birth. It was one of those full moons. Usually, after the 8th month, most healthy women in Cuba tended to give birth during the full moon. When a lot of women synchronized their pregnancy, it tended to get pretty busy. Eduardo had only come home for a couple of hours to rest and to check out the family. He would then have to return to finish the night shift. He was working himself ragged for a pittance. Still, it was the easiest way to get milk for the family. A newborn mother always got a healthy supply of milk. Whatever they did not drink was collected in a bottle for Dr. Mason. He would then smuggle the milk bottles out of the hospital hidden in his socks. This was the reason why his socks always smelled of milk. Aside from treating the maids, Eduardo had to deal with a poor bastard that had gotten mauled by a pack of dogs. Every exposed piece of flesh had been beaten. There was even some loss of muscle tissue in one of the legs, and the belly fat had been partially devoured as well. It was this side that helped develop Eduardo's fear of dogs. When he was small, his parents did not have pets since his mother thought them messy, and she was allergic. As such, she never learned to understand dogs or even like this. This sudden fear of dogs would eventually cause Eduardo some problems in the future. While operating on the man, he commented, "What sort of vicious dog could have done such a thing?" "See, all right, doctor," said one of the gossiping nurses. "See, all right, is that the name you gave the dog?" asked Eduardo. "That is what the children call him," said the nurse. Alright, we finished the chapter, but let's continue reading. Chapter 7, The Ceiba. January came, and with it the promise of getting presents for the children. Since Lucero was finally in school, Eduardo felt it was time to get her started in catechism. The cathedral where all the children were taken was uphill. It had an elegant Baroque design, and it had a large grassy field and a couple of ceiba trees. The local witch doctors were on the habit of turning around the tree. As they did, they made their wishes. Their wishes, not their witches. The head priest was called Father Carlos, the head priest of the Catholic Church, not of the witch people. He was named after Saint Carlos. It was common for Catholics who went to the church to adopt the name of their patron saint. The nuns also followed in the same habit. He was about 57, of medium stature, with bald and white hair, with bushy eyebrows and expressive eyes. He was somewhat overweight, which as a virtual sign that he was well connected. Nobody with connection ever went hungry in Cuba. Father Carlos would see the parishioners engaging in such paganistic practices, and he would shake his head sadly. Since those witch doctors had good connections, Father Carlos could do nothing about them. He could not even chastise them. He did not fear the curses, but he indeed worried about the harm they could do to him and his flocks in the real world. Through fear and rights, the Santeros could compel their followers to entice the government to close up the church. Ideally, the Cuban government wanted to get rid of all religion. This was easier said than done. As things stood at the moment, the church, the Santeros, and the Cuban government had an unspoken non-aggression pact. Still, efforts were still being made to get rid of the Catholic Church for good, both within and outside of Cuba as well. For the moment, they were slowly infiltrating it. Father Carlos was one of the few true shepherds left in Pinar del Rio. The rest have been replaced by wolves. As for the Santero, many went to the cathedral and even took their hosts in their person. For them, doing this little ritual did not exclude them from the Catholic religion. If it was up to Father Carlos, he would have excommunicated them lot years ago. It did not make sense to him to pray for salvation of one that while wishing harm upon one's neighbor with another. Jesus taught you to love your neighbor, not to steal his hair in order to curse him. At the moment it was close to noon, the children were engaging in choir practice. It was the only time during the class setting that Lucero made a sound. This was in part due to her brother's presence. Whenever there was a familiar face, there was a metamorphosis in her general attitude. Suddenly, she was pleasant to be around with. Eufrasio liked choir practice. He used to sing the loudest because he wanted God to hear him. Today, the nun had officially discharged Eufrasio from his choir duty. He did not care. He liked singing rather loudly, "River of life-giving water, river of life-giving water." Since he started to depart, Lucero followed after him. The nun said, "You do not have to leave, Lucero." Lucero did not bother to turn around. She pretended not to hear her. The brother and sister left to sit beneath the ceiba tree. There was a pleasant wind and everything was peaceful in the church. From time to time, people dressed in white would come to do their little rounds. They gave a cursory glance at their children before returning to their worship and activities. Lucero said to her brother, "Do you remember when we were smaller? We used to lay down on the roof of the apartment to see the clouds pass by." We were small children," asked Eufrasio sternly. "I suppose, but don't you wish to go back to that?" asked Lucero. "I don't know. I have plenty of other things I could do. Then just sit down and see the clouds passing by," said Eufrasio, getting up. Lucero's face darkened. She rose from the ground and the children made their way back home. Aside from the church, the ceiba tree was also found in the cemetery. It was a somewhat of an uncommon tree. It was usually found in places of spiritual significance. It was common for Catholic settlements to build on top of the sacred sites of the Indians, but in Cuba they were called the Taínos. They would substitute other symbols and beliefs with their own, even if there were no more Taínos left in Cuba. At least many of the sacred ceiba trees still remain. Near one of the last ceiba trees in the cemetery, there was a lonely grave. The graves in Cuba were built above ground. The water table was too high for proper burial. It was common for the children to visit the graves to play hide and seek while the adults mourned. Eduardo was visiting his father's grave. He always visited his father on the anniversary of his death. He did not see the man much, and during the time his father was sick, his mother would take him out to go to the shopping center or to the park to distract him and his sibling. She felt that it would scar his small children if they saw the man suffering through chemotherapy. After many years, Eduardo barely remembered anything good about his father. He only had two vivid memories of the man. The first was when his father returned from his operation. He saw his father's shirt open. There was a surgical scar going from his chest to below his navel. His blood froze, and it took all his strength to come near his father after his mother beckoned him to welcome the poor man home. For some reason, Eduardo knew that his father was not going to survive. He did not have any hope on the matter. It just felt like a matter of time. Eduardo looked upon the gray marker of his father, and he read his epitaph aloud. He then slowly read the man's name. After remembering the incident with the surgical scar, Eduardo remembered the last few hours he spent with his father. It was common for Eduardo and his father to do laundry together. The man had told him that for the first time in a long time he was feeling better. When night fell, his father was rushed to the hospital. Days passed before Eduardo's mother finally told him that what he already knew. To make his mother feel better, Eduardo lied and he said that he dreamt of his father. He told her that his father was in heaven and in peace. In response to this kind gesture, his mother told him that his father's last words were, "You put the wrong medicine in me." When he was young, Eduardo thought the nurse had murdered his father. After he got to know the culprit nurse, he realized that she was just careless. She would thoughtlessly accidentally kill patient after patient, and nothing bad would ever happen to her. Her bad karma eventually caught up with her, and she did that because of the criminal negligence of a different nurse. This belated justice never brought peace to Eduardo. His father was dead, and what occurred to the nurse did not change his fact. Eduardo thought of this and many other things while sitting beside the grave. A grave robber noticed Eduardo by his father's tomb, and he decided to pick a different target. Grave robbing has always been common in Cuba. The carcass of a human holds some value. At times, the government uses random bodies to teach future doctors on anatomy. This too had occurred to Eduardo's father. Little did the poor man know that he was praying to an empty casket. In another part of Pinar del Rio, Irina was going to visit her favorite cemetery. It was located in the gardens of the first house she ever lived. The house was in ruins and abandoned. Nobody lived there aside from the occasional homeless person. Her earliest memory was of the cemetery. She was lying down in bed looking out the window. It was a stormy windy night, and she saw faces inside the tree. The faces naturally frightened her, so she did what any normal girl would do. She hid under the covers, and she turned her back on the tree. The following night, she saw that the faces in the tree were mocking her. It was at this point that Elena figured that she was just being a little silly. The current Elena looked at the tree foliage. The dark shadows and the play of light made it seem like there were tiny creatures moving about the tree. As she had done many times in the past, Irina spun around the tree 3 times. She wore an elegant white dress and a white turban. The only color decorations came from the necklace and bracelet. Both were decorated by red and black beads. The red and black is the color of el igual. One cannot do any santeria without summoning the fellow. He holds the key that connects the human world with the world of the saints. He also acts as a translator. Depending on his mood, he can mistranslate your message, thus angering the saint you are trying to summon. With each turn, Irina made a wish. In order not to be disappointed, Irina never asked for something that she knew was impossible. She was also not of the habit of wishing people harm. What did Irina wish for? Elewa only knows. After concluding this little task, she started making her way towards the Grand Cathedral to pick up the children. Father Carlos saw her dressed in white and he commented, "Celebrating the saints? Yes, like any good Catholic should," said Irina proudly. "Whatever helps you sleep at night, child. God be with you," said Father Carlos. "And with you as well," said Irina as she entered the church. "How odd," said Father Carlos, laughing. Irina did not make any remarks. She was already familiar with the usual with Father Carlos' usual teasing. Despite being a priest, Father Carlos did not believe in such petty superstition. He was a practical Jesuit man who believed that beliefs could not be forced upon another person. If it wasn't in a person to believe, then all a priest could do was pray. Regardless of their belief differences, Father Carlos respected and admired Irina. He knew she was a good person, and every once in a while Father Carlo would visit Irina and her family to dine at her table. She was just that amazing cook, in spite of the scarcity as far as ingredients were concerned. Before looking for the children, Irina looked wonder about the church. Despite coming here every Sunday, she did not get tired of looking at the decoration. The church was called San Rosendo Catholic Cathedral. San Rosendo was a Catholic saint from the 10th century. Like most saints, he was said to be a healer. He taught people both with words and deeds. Why was this church built in Pinar del Rio? Well, because San Rosendo is said to be the patron saint of that region. Each saint is believed to have a particular region or country that they care about. The region that has a patronage with a particular saint always has a church dedicated to the fellow. The Catholic Church usually arranges the patronage based on where the saint is born. How and why Pinar del Rio got this medieval saint patronage is something that nobody ever thinks about. Though her father was thinking about it, he had recently run into a book about the lives of saints. It seemed odd that Pinar del Rio would have a medieval, would have a Spanish medieval saint as a patron. It would make more sense to dedicate the church to a saint that was actually born in Pinar del Rio. Then again, after reading the book a little more, Facio realized that there were no saints in Cuba, with the exception of Saint Anthony or Mary Claret. However, he was from Barcelona, Spain, and he worked in Santiago de Cuba. As for the Cathedral of San Rosendo, it was built in 1903. Alright, so we'll stop it for now. Bye-bye, guys. Teresita Blanco, there's a sister, and we're reading La Casa, and I'm completing the chapter where I left off, the Ceiba Tree one. As for the Cathedral of San Rosendo, it was built in 1903. It had an elegant mix of neoclassical and Baroque design. It has a balanced composition with two main bell towers in the front. The interior was pretty straightforward, with the columns holding up the barrel vault roof. The windows were decorated with stained glasses. One of them featured La Caridad de Cobre. Behind the altar, inside a large golden frame, there was an image of San Rosendo. Though to Irina, it seemed like an icon to St. Lazarus. To the left of him, there was a replica of La Caridad de Cobre. To his right, Saint Joseph, there was an icon of Saint Joseph with the baby Jesus. The balance of red and white inside was quite eye-catching. The exterior of the church had a nice manicured lawn and steps leading out to the entrance. Behind the church, there was a large grass garden with a couple of ceiba trees. At the moment, the facade was painted white, with yellow on the decorative molding and around the small windows. The roof was painted red. The best aspect about the entire church was the immaculate marble floor tiles. The red and black tiles were such a treat. They ironically had the same colors as the wall. On the exterior, there was a statue of Jesus. Irina admired the floor and many other things, while her footsteps echoed across the marble floor. She heard around her familiar footsteps of the children, but she could not see them. Guessing that they were hiding, she said, "It is almost 6 o'clock. You're going to miss your cartoons." Neither of them responded. It was then that Irina remembered that on the weekends the cartoon started earlier. She was forced to play hide and seek. After looking around a bit, she found her charger and she was able to return home. Along the way, Irina started remembering what the old altars used to look like. Before moving to Isabel la Católica, the family used to go to the Cathedral of San Rosendo. It was common for people in Cuba to marry to a specific church. Even if they moved, they always tried to visit the same place. Irina was never much of a church-going type of person. She had not even bothered to have her children baptized. She had only started going there regularly when she moved in with Angelica. Angelica had become Catholic thanks to her cousin. By the age of 11, Angelica was already baptized, and by 13, Angelica had her confirmation. Irina did not mind the change of religion, since to her Catholicism fell under the big umbrella of Cuban religiosity. She was just happy that her daughter had finally found something to believe in. The old altars were made of lovely wood. One day, Father Carlo was putting a candle for San Rosendo when the weight of the candle caused the wood to collapse. This caused the big thing to fall on the fellow, who caught it before it smashed on the floor. Lo and behold, the others had been attacked by Wood's ancient enemy, the termites. The others were faced by a pious man named Jesus Garrido. He had started life as a military man, but he changed to architecture. He designed the new atlas and oversaw the repairs. He died in July 1981. He was on his way to feast a church in Santiago de Cuba when he suffered a car accident. He was stable at the hospital. However, his condition eventually complicated. Alright, so now we're moving to the next chapter. Chapter 8. Foreign buyers. In another part of the neighborhood, just past the bakery, there was a huge line starting at a ceiba tree. The tree provided shade for one of the few toy stores in the locale. Since it was January, there was a huge line to buy the new toys for the new year. The latest ones are usually released in January. Each year, each family is allowed to buy a main toy and 2 other toys for their children. Just as the food is rationed, so too are the toys. The reasoning behind it is pretty obvious with the forced egalitarianism and whatnot. Still, equality is only forced on the people, not on on the citizens and not on those in power. Influence is indeed the true currency in Cuba. Anyhow, waiting in line like the rest of the mere mortals was Angelica. She sighed as she noticed that she was just at the entrance. She reclined against a nearby ceiba tree only to flinch away from his spiny thorns. She noticed that there was hardly anything to take home. It was then when she heard a friendly voice that said to her, "Teacher, how's it going?" "Hey, Fade, how you doing?" said Angelica. The pair hugged and kissed on the cheek, as was the customary greeting among friends. The man standing before Angelica was named Mamadou Fade. He was from Senegal, West Africa. It was common for people of Africa to go to Cuba for training. Cuba had a strange relationship with the people of Africa. It was one of those works in progress. One of those little side projects of Fidel Castro. In Fidel Castro's early days, he campaigned a lot for the liberation of the African people. It was part of the reason why a lot of people from Africa and even African Americans wore chest shirts. All they knew was the propaganda that Fidel Castro had fed to them. Anyhow, Mamadou was 5'4" with amber eyes, short curly hair, and ebony skin. Since he was starting to be a doctor, he had developed a delicate complexion. The lack of meat in his Cuban diet had helped to reduce his muscle mass. Still, he kept relatively healthy since he was a foreigner. Mamadou said to Angelica, "So how's it going?" "Just the same daily nonsense, though there was an interesting incident the other day," said Angelica. "Any rare diseases spotted?" asked Mamadou. "Nothing of the sort, just that they found a baby in the graveyard. It still had its umbilical cord and placenta attached to it as well." "What sort of animal would do such a thing?" asked a different person waiting in line. "That's what the CDR is trying to find out," said Angelica. "Did the baby die?" asked another gossiper. "The baby's fine, and she's healthy. The baby girl is fine and she's healthy. If it was a boy, he would have died," said Angelica. "How so?" asked Mamadou, curious. "Well, it is just from my experience, that things that normally kill babies seem to kill baby girls a lot less," said Angelica. Said a fellow behind Angelica. He added, "I had noticed the same thing in poultry." "Maybe baby girls are just born stronger," said Mamadou. "It must have something to do with the estrogen, or the fact that it is the same gender as the mother, so the body doesn't see it as alien," said Angelica. "It is stuff for concern when the antibodies do that," said Mamadou. "More the pity," said Angelica. "I don't get it," said a fellow behind Angelica. "Nor are you supposed to, little man," said Mamadou, smiling wildly. He added, "I could spend the rest of the day explaining it to you, but I am not one to amuse strangers for very long, so if your boy had the courtesy to intrude in someone else's conversation." Mamadou lingered beside Angelica for a bit. He enjoyed talking medicine with her. It served as a good refresher for his exam. His professor was knowledgeable, but a little cynical with his explanation. At least Angelica did not make him feel like an idiot. When they reached the end of the line, Angelica was disappointed by the slim piggy. Shaking his head sadly, Mamadou said, "What a shame." The farmer said, "If there's nothing you like, pick something cheap and I will trade you some toys for Compota." "Fine," said Angelica. Compota was a type of baby food that kept well. In a pinch, she could provide a good source of a good nutritional supplement. Angelica acquired 6 toys for her children, and since the farmer had boys, she picked some cars, marbles, and plastic machete. Machete had become quite a popular toy among boys thanks to a video about this. All his episodes ended with him doing a mad charge with his army while wielding his machete. The farmer followed Angelica to her home. Mamadou followed along because he was formulating a plan. One could almost hear the gears of his head working. By the time the exchange was done, he had come up with a plan. When the farmer left, Mamadou pulled Angelica to the kitchen. He frowned when he noticed Irina staring daggers at him. He moved to the back garden with Angelica, and the two of them were shocked to see Eufrasio and the penguin playing with fire. They were burning paper right next to the gas tanks. Angelica shocked said, "Give me that! You want to blow up the house?" She took the magnifying glass from her son and she placed it inside her pocket. Frowning, Eufrasio said, "I'm bored." "It is better to be bored than dead. And if that gas tank gets even a little bit of fire, it will go kaboom, killing everyone in a 6-mile radius. You want our death on your conscience? What would your God say? That it was an accident, that you were bored? Also, it's mean to... Don't do it again, you hear," said Angelica. "Okay," said Eufrasio. "Do not talk back to me," said Angelica, folding her arms. Eufrasio said nothing. "Tell me you understand," insisted Angelica. Eufrasio opened his mouth to say something, but instead he nodded in response. Angelica hugged her son and she said, "I'm just messing with you. Go play in the park, you little fire starter." Eufrasio went out of the house along with the penguin. With both children gone, Mamadou said, "Well, about my plan." "What are you scheming now?" said Angelica. "As you know my position and the current climate of both here and back home, it would do me well to be seen with a lady such as yourself," said Mamadou. "I'm thinking you're overthinking things again," said Irina. "This is Cuba. Nobody cares." "But there are people from back in my village who know me and who have been spreading false rumors about me. I need to nip this problem in the bud before my parents catch wind of it," said Mamadou. "I don't like where this is going. I'm a married woman," said Angelica. "Since when do you care what other people think about you?" said Mamadou. "Those who like you well will think good of you, and those who despise you will always think bad of you. No amount of good honorable behavior will change the simple truths of the world." "If it is a day thing, I haven't got the time for it," said Angelica. "Nope. And I have an even better idea," said Mamadou, smiling. "It will solve both your problem and mine for the time being." "Go on," said Angelica with her hand. "Do you know all las tiendas de amistad?" asked Mamadou. "Oh, those city places, but you have to be a foreigner to buy there," said Angelica. "Not necessarily. I often see the local quinceañeras with their gringo truck drivers buying all sorts of little knickknacks. As long as there is a foreigner there, the owner won't care that you're shopping," said Mamadou. Angela agreed to try her luck in las tiendas de amistad. There was one a few blocks away. Before heading out, Angelica thought it would work better if she looked the part. Angelica put on a black skirt that was cut to the left way past her knee. She tucked in her shirt and she wore a bulbous silk shirt that was pink. The cut of the chest went past her breast. She removed her bra and she puffed up her hair. For the final touch, she put it on pink heels and a golden belt. The makeup was simple with just an eyeliner and red lipstick. When Arina saw her daughter exit the bedroom, she could not help but comment, "You look like a whore." "That's the idea, Mother," said Angelica. Angelica started walking out with her small wallet in hand. Along the way, something grabbed her by the feet, and she stumbled. Lucero bit her mother's leg, and she scratched at it with her tiny feet. Frowning, Angelica said, "I haven't had time for your nonsense." Lucero released her mother and she frowned. Getting up, Lucero left the house and she crossed the street to play with Jennifer's cat. Mamadou walked with Angelica at an even pace, keeping his usual respectable distance. He did not make any newcomers, nor did he try to flirt with Angelica. As before, his conversation returned to topics of medicine. When they were a few blocks away, Mamadou said to Angelica, "Well, it's showtime. How do you think we should enter? Should we hold hands?" What are you? Stop acting stupid, said Angelica. "Just put your arm over my shoulder, almost reaching into my chest. And then I will put my arm around you. All right, let's go. Let's just get this over with already." "You are no fun," said Angelica. Mamadou was already regretting coming up with this idea in the first place. Their entrance had the desired effect. The shopkeepers eyed Angelica from head to toe, and they frowned and huffed as she passed. They did the same whenever a lady of the street entered with their lover. There was also the slight racism that still remained from colonial time. It wasn't an official rule or anything. Rather, it was common for mothers to whip their daughters whenever they saw them dancing with a man that looked like Mamadou. All right, we'll continue with the story real soon. Bye bye.
Action.
Here we are, continuing with the chapter. Foreign buyers. This is the fourth recording of the day. This number is more for me to remember the order.
Get on with it.
Not deciding to linger there, Angelica made her way towards the toy section. The first thing that drew her attention was a bicycle. This one made her short and a bit more active, but there was no guarantee that they would not get run over, and then there were the dogs to consider. They always attacked anyone who was riding a bike. It was then when she shifted to a tricycle. Lucero was just at the right age to use one, though she was a bit tall for her age. Angelica got the tricycle, and Mamadou brought it to the front of the store. He waited there at the counter with a big smile on his face. The lady said to Mamadou, "It doesn't take much to please her, does it?" Mamadou said, "Quo, viene salope." The lady in the counter figured that Mamadou only spoke French. When she was younger, she had studied French, and then when she changed school, she was taught Russian. And by the time she made it to university, Mandarin was in style. As far as foreign languages were concerned, the Cuban government never committed. Like a butterfly, they hopped from one language to another, never truly learning one. Mamadou stood there and he waited. Eventually, he recognized somebody from his village that also went to his same school. The two started talking in their native language, Bayot. The fellow asked him, "That's a wife of the professor." "And your point is," said Mamadou. "No, nothing. Is she any good?" asked the student. "As good as any other local, for real. She's at least experienced. And she's not boring, unlike those young maidens you like so much, who say much but do nothing at all." The conversation followed its usual trend. All guy conversations about their lovers are pretty much the same. While the men gossiped, Angelica picked out other items. She would have taken the whole store, but the manager lady said, "It is only 3 toys per children." Resigned to her fate, Angelica was forced to narrow her choices. So she got from the store the tricycle and a Barbie and a Atari, and a set that came with a mace, a sword, and a shield. Oh, and she also bought a giant car. Mamadou looked at the large charges and he rolled his eyes. He figured that he would have to carry them. He said to Angelica, "The tricycle is fine, but do you really have to buy your son a car?" "I always wanted one since I was little, and since I will never be able to afford one, at least my son can have fun with this giant plastic one," answered Angelica. Mama strapped to his back the large green MGB roadster. He could hear the paddles rolling inside. On the other hand, he carried the tricycle, and in the other, the set of plastic weapons. Angelica carried the box with the Atari on one hand, and the other two boxes with the dolls. On her way out, Angelica looked at the Christmas tree. She asked the store manager, "How much for the tree with the ornaments?" The shopkeeper said, "I don't know, $100? Okay, I will return." "Sure you will," said the shopkeeper, laughing. My mother walked a bit of a pace, and he asked, "Surely you're jesting. Didn't you want people to see more of you and me together?" asked Angelica. "Yeah, but this is turning out to be more trouble than it's worth," whined Mamadou. "No complaining. I can only do this thing once a year. It is not as if you're going to be logging everything alone." "I suppose I have to do the gentlemanly," said Mamadou, somewhat deflated. Angelica stopped a moment, and Mamadou stopped as well. Turning serious, Angelica said, "Thank you. It was nothing. I did not even pay for anything, and aside from carrying the stupid car, I haven't really done much of anything," said Mamadou. "What seems like nothing to you means a great deal to me, more than you can possibly imagine," said Angelica. She opened her mouth to elaborate, but remembering herself, she decided to be prudent. When Angelica arrived home, she was relieved to see that her children were not there. She said to her mother, "Do you have a place to hide all this?" "Dios mío, have you gone insane?" said Irina sternly. "How much did you pay for all of that?" "Just $300. And it's not as if we're using that money anyway. It doesn't do any good to just be there rotting away," said Angelica. "You are lucky that your husband is not here, or he might make you return everything," said Irina. "It is fine. I can just lie about how much I spent. But for that purpose, I will require your cooperation." "And yours, Faith," said Angelica. "Leave me out of it," said Mamadou, and he added, "Between husband and wife, it's best for outsiders not to meddle." Turning to her mother, Angelica said, "Speaking of money, I need another $100. "Why?" asked Irina. "I'm going to buy us a Christmas tree," said Angelica. "We have a nice one already," said Irina. "Sure, it is nice for someone living in a small apartment, but it's a big one. But it's a big tree, Mother, and it almost touches the roof, and I'm also buying the ornaments. Come on, you're gonna love it," said Angelica, remembering the tree. "I don't know, it's also one thing, but a tree, it just seems so wasteful. I mean, we're only gonna use it for a couple of days in Christmas." Angelica gave her mother the sad puppy eyes, and after fake whimpering, Irina, rolling her eyes, said, "That's enough, Hina Cabera. Here, get your $100 and come back soon. But at least do try to haggle. And take some compota and that box of tilapia. See if you can get a discount on the tree by exchanging those items that I'm already sick of eating." "Okay, Mother." Irina only called her mother and Mama when her children and husband were not around. The rest of the time, Irina was just Mother. As for Reina Cabrera, she was a famous Cuban actress from the 1940s and 50s. She was famous for her acting and for refusing to kiss her husband on the lips after saying the word "I do." Irina hid the presents under the kitchen table. She placed a mantle over it to hide them from sight. Afterwards, she gave Mama a box of tilapia. Meanwhile, Angelica carried the compotas. Mamadou was already sick of the entire enterprise, but he was a man of his word. He would carry out his task, come what may. Along the way, he saw a pack mule, and he felt a sort of kinship with the animal. It was close to dusk when the delivery was concluded. Since Mamadou had taken longer than he had planned, he decided to stay in the neighborhood with some distant relatives who lived a few blocks away. But before heading out, he decided to try out Irina's delicious cooking. He was mildly amused by watching Angelica fixing up the Christmas tree while singing. Eduardo had just returned home, and he greeted his family in the usual Cuban fashion. Eduardo shook hands with his student as a formal greeting. He knew that Mamadou was not a big fan of being kissed on the cheek by a man. The children also helped Angelica with the decoration. They did not get to choose where the ornaments were placed, but they were at least allowed to hold them. Angelica was a big trophy as far as the Christmas tree decoration was concerned. On the background, on the TV, there was a terrible children's show being played called Arcoiris Musical. It usually ran on Wednesday. This variety show was rarely watched. Mamadou asked Eduardo, gesturing to Angelica, "Is she always this cheerful?" "Most days. She doesn't smell like cigarettes, so I'm starting to think that this is a Christmas miracle," said Eduardo. Changing the tractor, Eduardo said, "They released my babe from prison today." "Oh, thank God," said Mamadou. "For a minute I was afraid they were going to lynch him." "This is Cuba you're talking about. They do not lynch people. It is tradition to use a firing squad," explained Eduardo. "That doesn't make me feel any better," said Mamadou, putting his elbow on the forehead of the sofa to rest his head against his hand. "Don't worry about it. The worst he would have gotten would have been unceremoniously exiled back to his country." "Maybe," said Eduardo. "What a relief. There's nothing worse than being accused of a crime you did not commit. It is not too uncommon," said Eduardo. Lucero, a bit curious, asked, "Why was Maybeth sent to prison?" Maybeth had a girlfriend. One day he told her he was no longer in love with her and that he was leaving her. The girl naturally did not take this well, so she threw her free and she accused him of ideological diversionism, so he was sent to prison. Dinner time came, and with she returned to the house. The only minor mishap came in the form of a light bulb breaking and falling on top of the bed. Since it happened during dinner, it did not harm anyone. When the tree was finally lit up, it flickered in a strange fashion, almost as if there was not a steady stream of electricity. Mamadou said, "Well, I didn't do that before." "Oh, well, whatever. At least you got your Christmas tree. I'm going home. Good night, Mason family." "Good night, Faye." Say they should have not bothering to get up. Angelica said, "Don't be rude. Say goodbye properly." "It's fine," said Mamadou, yawning. "At this hour and on this foot, I don't really care about such pleasantries." "Good night, Faye. Thank you," said Angelica, kissing her student on the cheek. "No, thank you, Mrs. Mason," said Mamadou after returning the kiss. With a sign of cordial friendship, Mamadou left. The night air felt thick and humid. There were dark clouds gathering. There was a faint mist coming down from the abandoned house where the dogs lived. Mamadou trembled a little as he worried about the very real possibility of getting mauled by the stray dogs. There was no sound of dogs barking, though they never barked when they were on the prowl. Mamadou heard a strange creaking behind him and the sound of a bell. And when he turned around, he saw a fellow who said to him, "Toasted peanuts?" "Geez, isn't it a bit late to be peddling that?" asked Mamadou. "Well, there was an election in La Calle Real, and so I was there pretty busy most of the day. Only now I was able to make my way back home," said the traveling peddler. "Which reminds me, toasted peanuts?" Alright, how much time do we have left?
2 minutes and 50 seconds.
Yeah, let's just call it a day. Well, I hope you like what I read to you so far. Bye-bye and God bless. Now action. Hello, my name is Teresita Blanco, the Earth's sister, and today we're going to be continuing La Casa, or the house, written by me, Teresita Blanco. Chapter 9. The Silver Goblet. Spring came and with it the same daily sameness. It was the year 1983, and Fidel Castro had awoken in a particularly happy mood one cold April morning. It was thanks to his general good disposition that the rationing got a little better. The Cubans were finally allowed to fatten a little. The market was flooded with chicken. Irina was the first to go to gather the chicken for the family. After getting a couple, she also bought a little piglet. She had the intention of fattening the little pig. The children did not bother to get to know the would-be meal. They saw they realized that there was no point in befriending an animal that was gonna just end up on their plate. At the moment they were playing with the tricycle, the sister would sit and the brother would then give her a knee, would then push her forward. At other times they would drop from the incline that was a block over. Lucero was not too keen on going down from that spot because she would pick up too much speed. Whenever she was feeling unsettled, she would plant her sandals square on the floor. And when playing with the tricycle, she preferred to wear shoes to help maintain control. It was around noon when Elena returned home with her purchase. She had 6 new chickens to cook and the piglet. She found her daughter taking a nap in preparation for her night duties. Meanwhile, her daughter was busy with the Atari. He was supposed to have called the kids as soon as he had installed the console. Instead, he got caught up in a game of combat. Elena frowned and she asked, "Where are the kids?" "They are playing outside," said Eduardo. Elena seemed inclined to say more, but she chose to remain silent. She did not know what to make of the silly game. It just seemed like a bunch of blocks moving left and right while the screen made weird sounds. She started walking, but she stopped a moment as if remembering something. She played a game in front of Eduardo, and then she said, "Look, son, Mother bought you a new game." Eduardo said smiling, "Miss Pac-Man, neat. I heard from my co-worker that this was a neat game." "The Atari was meant for the kids, you know," reminded Irina. "They will play it when I call them. I want to at least enjoy it for a couple of more hours before relinquishing ownership of the joystick forever," said Eduardo, sighing. Eduardo had been born before the age of video games. He would have been a gamer had such systems come out sooner. Now at the age of 41, his inner child was reawakening. The feeling was only temporary. He eventually rose from the ground with a heavy step. He went to the window and he called for his children. After doing so, he went to the bedroom to nap with his wife. Since Eufrasio was familiar with the Atari, he allowed Lucero to try the game first. The first game they played was Mrs. Pac-Man. It was intuitive enough. Just eat all the blocks and don't let the ghosts eat you. The game Miss Pac-Man was actually rare in Pinar del Rio, though through it, Eufrasio and his sister were able to play many other Atari games. There was no game rental stores in Cuba. If the kids wanted to play new games, they just had to trade it with each other. It was common for kids to discuss what games they owned in the playground. When it came time to buy new games, they tried to get different ones from one another. This could only be done among best buddies, and Eufrasio by now had 4 of them. Lucero had friends as well. Aside from Jennifer, Lucero had a new friend. Her name was Jasmine Perez, and she was a 3-year-old toddler, the daughter of Eufrasio's teacher. The girl had black hair and bright gray eyes. Lucero played with her the same way she would play with her own dolls, by brushing her hair and picking out clothing for her. At all the time she would let Jasmine ride on her tricycle, or she would give her a piggyback ride. To Lucero, Jasmine was a living doll, and Lucero only got along with children that reminded her of inanimate objects. As for Jasmine, she was a little attention star since her mother had gone back to work. Since Lucero was tough for her age, Jasmine used to call her Big Girl. They usually played in front of the porch of Mrs. Perez's house. The hours rolled by rather slowly inside the Mason house. Eventually, there was a symbolic knock on the door. It was symbolic because the house was usually open during the morning to allow the breeze to permeate the house. From the kitchen, one could see the entrance of the home when all the doors of the garden were open. Elena saw a familiar set and she said, "Ignacio, come in." Ignacio was a farmer from La Palma, and he had one of those extremely long last names and middle names too. For the sake of brevity, he would be called Ignacio Lopez. He was 57 years old, stout, short, as was common of people who descended from Galicia, Spain. He noticed the children playing. He gave a cursory look to the television, and then he returned to the task at hand. He asked, "Do you have the thing?" "Yes," Serena handed him a brown paper bag. She added, "Don't forget you have to throw it in the river, otherwise it's not going to work." "I thank you," said Ignacio, removing his hat and bowing. "Oh, Ignacio, you're far too simple for your own good," said Irina, returning to the task she was performing before Ignacio's arrival. She had been busying herself by polishing the silver. She was currently making some headway on the silver goblet. Ignacio asked, "Where do you get such a goblet?" "I found her. There was a crack in the back garden floor, and when we lifted it out, we saw a cachet of silver hidden away," lied Irina. Do you think there could be more loot hidden around here? Asked Ignacio. It is possible, but there's no way to know for certain without opening random holes all over the house, said Irina. Maybe there is another way of finding out, said Ignacio, thinking aloud. Well, if you come up with a solution, I will be quite happy to implement it, said Irina. Ignacio left the house quite thoughtful. A month passed, and Irina had completely forgotten about the conversation. One day, Ignacio made another appearance. He only came down to Pinar del Rio when he needed something. When he entered the house, he had a large backpack. Some of the visible objects included a pike, a shovel, a lantern, and a metal detector. He also had headphones. He started scanning the floor and over the top of it, and eventually made his way to the kitchen. Angelica, who was home, was the first to react. She said, "What in the world? Ignacio, what are you doing?" asked Irina. "I'm looking for silver. I did as you asked. I went home and gave it some thought, and after I threw the spell into the river, the same revealed to me the solution as to how to find all the hidden loot in your house. You see, this is a metal detector, and I'm getting some strong readings over here. I'm listening for cobalt, or maybe iron. No, I'm certain it must be nickel. It is quite smooth, so it must be man-made. I am certain of it." "Look, you crazy person, you are not digging a hole in my kitchen," said Angelica sternly. "I beg your pardon. Your mother asked me to look into this." "I did no such thing. Look, whatever I may or may not have said, it was purely in jest. I am certain of it. I never asked you to dig holes in my house," said Irina. "Don't you remember the silver, the goblets, the hidden loot?" "Oh, wait, now I remember," said Irina, laughing. "One cannot simply joke with you, Ignacio, and I am ever so sorry that you went to all of the trouble of getting the metal detector." "Oh, I see, so there isn't any treasure?" asked Ignacio, deflated. "Nope," said Angelica, almost apologetic. "If it makes you feel better, I can make you some dinner. You must be starved after walking all the way with all of those heavy objects," said Irina. "I look forward to this," said Ignacio, putting down the backpack and moving the metal detector to the side of the garden. Meanwhile, the Francia had gone into the kitchen to open the fridge. Inside, he found the silver goblet with gelatin inside. He placed his index finger inside the gelatin. He noted that the texture was still not there yet. He lit the red liquid of the tree and he tasted the sugar lightly. Other than being used for gelatin, the silver goblet served no other purpose. How much time is there on the clock?
6 minutes and 27 seconds.
Alright, so let's continue. So we're like continuing now. We're in chapter 10. Like, that one was a short chapter. It was called the Little Park. Aside from the Cathedral San Rosendo, the family went from time to time to the Hermit of Charity. This church is one of the many dedicated to La Caridad del Pobre. La Caridad is one of the manifestations of the Virgin Mary. Her name refers to a region in Cuba known as El Cobre, or the Copper. Her name literally means the charity from cobre, or from copper. When this hamlet was founded, the Spaniards had found copper. The mine dried out about 100 years ago. Most of the citizens from there were descendants of African slaves who worked the mines. This charity manifested in 1612. Three men who were all called Juan for some reason had gone to sea to collect salt. Along the way there was a storm and they started to fear for their lives. The youngest one had a pendant with the image of the Virgin. All three started praying and the storm subsided. As the storm died down, a little statue of the Virgin Mary came upon their boat floating on a raft. The ones took it as a sign and they brought it back the statue with it. The governor, after hearing the story, ordered a church to be made for the Virgin. When the slaves were finally freed in 1801, the decree was read in front of the Lady of Charity. This story is the reason why almost all Cuban churches are dedicated to this Virgin. Today, the Mason family actually made an effort to go to this church, even though it was a little bit further away than San Rosendo. Since the parents had some free time, they decided to bring the children to El Paquito Gonzalez, or the Little Park. The children did not bother to enter the church since they prefer playing in the side garden. Lucero noticed some interesting new plants. When she touched them, the leaves shied away. The plant was called Mimosa pudica. Lucero had seen them in one of those old taxology books. The book had colored illustrations that were glued on. Many years later, Lucero would regret not looking through the entire library of her house at least once. While Lucero poked at the plants, Eufrasio was trying to knock down a mango using a stick. There were some fallen mangoes on the floor, but he saw that they looked dirty. Slowly, some of the sap of the tree had fallen on his elbow. After much tenacity, Eufrasio succeeded in acquiring a fresh mango that had not touched the ground. He clawed at the tip, and then he started sucking at it to get the juice. He said to Lucero, "Do you want a bit?" Lucero nibbled at it, and then she returned it to her brother. She rarely ate much of the food offered to her, but she would feel offended if people did not at least offer her something to eat. In the meantime, the parents were listening to the gripping sermon about humility and the service to your fellow man. Irina had not been in a mood for attending church. She had just gotten some correspondence from her friend from Peru, and she was busy writing back. Ever since she was 10, she had been writing to a Cuban painter named Boris Lynch. Through his work, he sustained his family and his wife's family. Sometimes it seemed to him that he was the only person that actually worked. In his latest letter, he was bemoaning that his daughter had changed her last name. She had done so when she became a citizen of Spain. Instead of Lynch, she was using her stepfather's last name, Hussein. This was Irina was busy trying to tell her not to make a big deal about it. Irina had never met Boris in the physical world. Both had gotten in contact with one of those silly pen pals projects. Most of the kids never wrote to one another again, but Irina and Boris just clicked. They had a healthy long-distance relationship, and they wrote to one another once a month. Noon finally came, and with it the mass was finally over. Lucero said to her father, "I'm starved." "We will eat something soon," said Eduardo, picking up his little daughter. Angelica came to take her son's hand. She stopped when she noticed brown spots on Eufrasio's arms and hands. Fran and Angelica said, "You should be careful with the tree sap in the future." She then came to a nearby water faucet and she cleaned the sap from Eufrasio's hands as best she could. After doing so, the family made their way towards El Paquito. Most of the people who visited the park thought that Paquito meant little park. They found it out that such a large park would be called Paquito. El Paquito González owes his name to a pionero or pioneer student who died in 1933. At the age of 12, he was part of the Communist Party. During one of the little marches, he was shot to death after causing a riot during a funeral procession. The park itself had a carousel, a skydiver, a rocket plane, and some swing boats, and the ever popular teacup. Oh yeah, the time, bro?
Hey, you have less than a minute.
Oh, well, I guess we'll continue this chapter later. Bye-bye. Hello, my name is Teresita Blanco, the Earth's sister, and today we're reading La Casa. And we're continuing with chapter 10, the little part. Alright, so this number 2 is for so that I remember what proper order to stop. Alright. Only the carrousel and the skydivers worked. The swing boats worked too, but only because they were made of iron. There was also the merry-go-round, the teeter-totters, the meadow slides, the swings, and the animal springers. We're talking about park rides. There were a couple of vendors in the park selling sweets and pizza. Rumor had it that the cheese sometimes had preservatives. In Cuba, preservative was another name for condoms. Nobody knows who started the rumor, but it made some people think twice about biting down into a cheese pizza. The first one they should have went to with their parents was the carousel. It was common for parents to ride along when they had small children. This was part of the reason why there were large legs behind the fake horses. Angelica sat on the same horse as Lucero, and she held on to her daughter with one hand while holding on to the column of the horse for balance. Eufrasio could be trusted to hold on to their lives, so Eduardo sat down behind him. Eduardo was not too fan of riding horses. He had been cojones, so mounting a horse was always a problem. As for Angelica,
Motherfuck.
Why don't curse?
Okay.
As for Angelica, what's your problem? Put on the light. she was younger. When she was small, one of the neighbors had a farm and a horse she could ride. The lady of the house allowed Angelica to ride the horse because it gave her daughter amused. The girl did not ride the horse, but she liked seeing Angelica ride the thing. When Angelica was not riding the horse, she was on the swing. The two girls never spoke to one another, for one was the actor and the other the spectator. After riding the carousel once, Eufrasio and Eduardo left to try other rides. Lucero did not like any other ride in the park. They twirled and turned a couple of times before Eduardo said, let's go. Lucero got some any. The parents proceeded. The choice for drinks they got the kids some Coca-Cola. Well, the parents said they spoke sweet nothing to one another. As for the children, they discussed it later. Meanwhile, Lucero was complaining that the robot only appeared twice in the movie, and for only 5 minutes each time, after Tooth and the loss of innocence. This was the title it got in Cuba. For the rest of the world, Yatu was name changed to Yatus. It's a matter of some debate. Yeah, it's also the girl died in the end, said Lucero. Well, it wasn't as bad as that other black and white mermaid movie. It was a real bummer, said Lucero. I have been noticing a general theme with the children movies that they put in the theater, said Eufrasio. Yep, I'm starting to see it too now that I think about it. Lucero took a sip of her soda and then said, the guy running the theater must be really sad, and he has no hope for the future. The little meme they have seen was the Japanese 1975 version. The film reel for the movie was in black and white. As for Yato, it was a lackluster anime science fiction movie. It was first released in Japan in 1981 and eventually made its way to Cuba, where it got hacked to pieces until it became unrecognizable. Eufrasio and Lucero at first did not get the movie. As they got on, they understood its messages. For Lucero, it seemed that it was a Romeo and Juliet in space, with the robot Yatus playing the role of Mercutio or something. Eufrasio got a different message from the movie. To him, it seemed like a critique to fighting for what you believe in. That fighting for your ideals just gets in the way of true love. After lunch, the family returned to the ride. Around 2 hours before sunset, the parents decided to call it a day. Eufrasio saw an ice cream stand and he said, can I have some ice cream? Sure, said Angelica before Eduardo had a chance to say no. He whispered to Angelica, we don't have the money for that. It's fine, I found 2 American quarters on the floor, said Angelica, smiling. Angelica was always on the ground looking at the floor for any spare change. She had picked up the habit from a character she had read about in her textbook. Lucero walked a pace ahead of the line. She noticed that the vendor only had chocolate ice cream. Since she did not like chocolate, she said to her father, well, since they don't have the ice cream I like, I'm going to the Cachumba bed. You can find me there once Eufrasio finishes eating. Eduardo did not hear that because he was bickering with his wife about money. After waiting in line for 7 minutes, Eufrasio got his ice cream. Eduardo asked the vendor, do you have any strawberry ice cream? No, just chocolate, said the vendor. Eduardo turning around said, well, I'm sorry, Lucero. We can get you some cotton candy if you... Angelica said funny, where's Lucero? Eufrasio, feeling terrible, shrugged his shoulder in response. With heart palpitations, Angelica cursed in the typical Cuban fashion. And Eduardo's malediction came in the form of me llevan, which meant that they were taking him to hell. They started looking about for the little girl while yelling, Lucero, Lucero, has anyone seen a little girl? Each person they ran into, they asked, have you seen her? She's small. She's wearing a white dress with green polka dots. Eufrasio was dragged along by the hand of his frantic mother. She kept whispering when she was not talking to anyone. Such an idiot, I should have known. should have never trusted her to stay put. Mom said Eufrasio. Not now, Eufrasio said Angelica. Eufrasio stopped and he yelled, Mom. He had dragged her to where he thought he knew where his sister was. He found her in the teeter totter, or seesaw, or what she called the cachumbambe. Seesaws are usually a two-person deal, and since Lucero's gloomy face did not inspire much confidence, she had spent quite a couple of minutes waiting for a kid to complain with her. In the end, an adult sat with her in the seesaw, in the seesaw to play with her. This person was Judas Ramirez, and he was their next-door neighbor.
Wait, the naked karate guy?
Oh, he was wearing clothing this time.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, go on.
An adult sat with a little girl in the theater. Okay, moving on. From time to time, he would see the girl looking through a picture book outside. He wanted to be. From time to time, he would see Lucero looking at a picture book while she sat outside the house. He wanted to be friends with her, but he hadn't started. He don't know that this could not be so. Judas was no longer a child, so his only option for friendship were either his elders, his contemporaries, or his cat Mika. Judas was not aware of this, but he showed an interest in Lucero because she reminded him of his childhood crush. The day he was going to confess his feelings to the girl, he saw her frolicking with the teacher. This was a big disappointment for Judas, and it was not too uncommon for girls to seek out their more. And so she were not uncommon in Cuba back in the day. Okay, let's move along. Judas was currently living with his sister and his great aunt. From time to time, he had a semblance of a normal life. This was one of those days, and he was currently going on a date with a teacher and her 3-year-old daughter. Some people just do not want to live alone, and Judas was a handsome loon with a deep masculine voice, blue eyes, and a stout form. Since he spent a lot of time training in the garden, his skin had a healthy tan glow. When he was not punching the walls or bricks, he would spend his time playing with his cat. He also practiced boxing with the little critter. He never so much as went as far as punching his cat. Rather, he studied the technique that Micah would use and then try to apply it to his form. When he spotted Lucero, he was standing bored, waiting for Miss Perez to get off the carrousel with her daughter. Angelica came to Lucero and she said, "Don't run up by yourself." While still going up and down, Lucero said, "I did not run up. I told you where I was going, but you never listened." "We are going home," said Angelica. She gave a glance at Judas, and he got up slowly from the seesaw to make certain that Lucero wouldn't fall to the floor quickly. Angelica knew of his condition, and she knew that it was best not to rattle out someone as crazy as he was. Instead, she pretended that he was not there. Judas was used to people pretending that he did not exist, so he did not take offense. He saw Angelica carrying Lucero away with one hand, and with the other she dragged Eufrasio. It took another hour to locate Eduardo, who was running around up and down the bank like a maniac. The family reunited by sunset, and so they walked home together. How much time do we have in the...
4 minutes.
Alright, here we are. We're continuing now to chapter 11. Oh, look, the music stopped.
Oh yeah, that story of Cuba. Okay. Moving on.
Okay, moving along. Chapter 11, the baby Jesus.
Oh god, that one's even worse. Okay, go on.
Whatever. This is fiction. Fiction. It was late spring and the family was... I'm just drinking some water. It was late spring and I'm very drunk. It was late spring and the family was getting around to putting away the Christmas tree. The item that was to be put away was the final item to be put away was the Nativity Jesus. Lucero said to her mother, "Can I play with the baby Jesus?" "Sure, I don't see why not. Just don't drop our Savior," said Angelica. Lucero icon with her to the front porch. There was a nice breeze, and it seemed like a good time as any to play. She saw Eufrasio talking with Judas. He was telling Eufrasio, look, in movies you see people kicking a lot, but if you want to defeat your opponent, all you truly need is a good punch. Since this is a playground fight and not one of regulations, you can try the rabbit punch. Rabbit punch, asked Eufrasio. When you get close to the gate, you can punch the back of the head or the neck with a curved punch. That usually disorients the opponent and it allows you to get a few more extra hits. And also, use your common sense. Hit the softest part with the hardest part of your body. The face has many cartilage, which are pretty soft and easy to break, explained Judas with a playful smile on his face. After this lesson, Eufrasio started his straight punch training. While he punched, Judas asked Eufrasio, what's that weird doll your sister's playing with? I don't know, why don't you ask her, said Eufrasio. I don't want to bother her. And Miss Perez says that she's so serious and quiet and shy, said Judas. Only when she's out of her element. If I'm here, she will speak to you normally, explained Eufrasio. Hey, Lucerito, show me your cute doll, gestured Judas. Fine, I guess, but don't break it, said Lucero getting up. She held the doll to Judas. He frowned when he noticed that it was the Nativity Jesus. It had its halo and everything. Judas asked, isn't it sacrilegious to play with Jesus? I don't know. An icon is just a piece of stone. We worship what it represents and not what it is. So if she treats it like a normal baby and not baby Jesus, I think it'll be fine. Maybe. I don't know. The Bible is contradictory. Almost seems like idolatry, explained Eufrasio. I don't really get all that religious mumbo-jumbo, said Lucero. Me neither, admitted Judas. Can I ask you a question, asked Lucero? Sure, said Judas. Where do you get those scars? Asked Lucero, pointing at Judas' wrist. I would answer the question if you tell me where you got your scars, inquired Judas. Fair enough, but you first, said Lucero. Judas said, pointing at one scar before telling the story. I got the one near my schedule from a stab wound. I was playing with a knife when I was small and I fell on it. The one in my wrist, I was trying to see if the knife was sharp and it ended up cutting me a bit too much. The fish, I was testing to see if the walls were made of bricks or not. The scratch on my face, I was showing my aunt that I wanted to go to the beach, so I jumped off the table. The one on my...
Okay, enough of that. Okay.
No, it's fiction. Nobody's anyone.
Okay.
The one on my tiny finger, I was... Alright. Today we're reading La Casa, written by me, Teresita Blanco, and we're continuing with chapter 11, the baby Jesus. The two burns on my forehead are from the electric shock therapy. Am I forgetting one? I had my appendix removed. Yeesh, what a mess. God forbid I'm ever that foolish as well, but I do make my own share of mistakes, said Lucero. Pointing to her chin, she said, this is one of my newest scars. You're the closest person near the camera. This is one of my newest scars. I got it last year. Mother said not to run into the bathroom because the floor was wet, and I did it anyway. I broke my shin. Remember? Blood was everywhere. I got even a couple of stitches. She sure cursed like a pirate too. It was really unpleasant to watch. It sounded like they were killing you. They might as well. They did not even use anesthesia or anything. It was quite dreadful to see the sewing needle and the thread going into your face and feeling your skin being close together like it's a piece of fabric. I shudder just thinking about it. Is the time running?
Yeah, it's running. It's just that you pronounce the wrong shin.
Shin?
Yeah, it's shin.
Shin.
Yeah, the one that you said.
Okay, moving on. Lucero then raised her leg to show a latch on top of her face. She explained. You remember a couple of months ago I was in a wheelchair? Yes, it was pretty depressing to watch, said Judah. Well, it happened like this. Mom was taking me on her bike to her workplace, and she kept telling me to keep my feet out of the railing of the bike. So since I didn't know what a railing was, my legs just kept flaying around not knowing where to put them. Anyhow, as you can imagine, I found what the railing or spoke once, and then it just messed up my leg. So then it was back to the hospital, said Lucero, passing her hand over her crazy mane of hair. With the other hand, she held onto the ceramic baby Jesus. She added, I have a couple of surgical scars here and there, but there's not an interesting story behind it. It must be dreadful to be sick, isn't it? Said Judah, somewhat melancholic. In spite of pretending to be sad, he could not help but have a smile painted on his face. One gets used to it, said Lucero. This phrase caused Judah to feel dreadful for real. Lucero, changing the subject, said, Don't make a big deal about it. I'm going to get cured for real, like real soon. There is going to be a saint visiting in San Rosendo, and when he puts his hands on me, I will get cured for real. If that's also where the experimental treatment might actually take effect, I would prefer if Jesus cured me and not the doctor, said Lucero. How so? Well, if the treatment works, then it means more tests to see why it works. I worry that they might try and put on a different disease on me, and then I'm going to spend as a lab rat forever, or at least until I die like all of the other children, said Lucero. How can you be certain that they are dead? Asked Horacio. Well, one day they're there, and the next day they were not. And at night you hear people sobbing in the lobby. People don't cry over good news, do they? Well, they might cry, but also laugh too. I don't really like being in the hospital, said Lucero. Well, at least your sickness has a treatment. Problems of the mind do not have cures in this country. All they can do is fry your brain until you behave in a way that is convenient for everyone. What is Mazorra like? Asked Horacio. I don't know. The time I spent there, I was like out of it. I do remember coming back home and my body was pure risk. It took a lot of time for me to regain my strength. Why do you ask? No reason, lied Horacio. Lucero did know the reason. Madness ran in the family. Irina's uncle was often seen roaming the street with his dog. He had lost his wife due to his taxidermy hobby, and one time he got in a fight with a rabid dog. His best known antics were decapitating a dog to make a walking stick out of his head. He would run the streets with it, and as his madness progressed, he drew further and further away from his family. Elfacio too thought he was going insane. When he listened to classical music, he smelled cinnamon. Other times when he smelled perfumes, he saw color. These were common symptoms of synesthesia, but Elfacio did not know what it was. He simply thought he was losing his grip on reality. There were also occasional visual hallucinations, but they had external reasons as well. He also had teresita and color blindness, but this did not bother him in the least, as it was just a change in the way that the objects were perceived. Judith was familiar with how crazy people dodge around the question. Still, he hoped it was just a matter of overactive imagination. Though he never understood how imagination worked exactly. What visions were considered imagination and what others fell under the realm of childhood schizophrenia. In the end, he decided to dismiss the matter altogether. Changing the subject, he said, You should put the baby Jesus back in his box. You haven't dropped it, but it could happen any minute, considering everything you told me. Well, you do have a point, said Lucero, listening to reason. She started walking back, but as light wind came and moved her hair, the rough edges crossed her shoulder a bit, and this scared her. Flinching forward, she yelled, Jesus Christ! She lost her grip and she dropped the heavy statue. The baby Jesus was decapitated. Frowning, she said, Oh, pooh. This is all your fault, Judas. Why me? Asked Judas. It's your negative attitude. You jinxed me, and now the baby Jesus will never grow up to die in the cross, said Lucero, kneeling down to grab the head. Horacio came over and he said, Maybe we can just glue it back together. Do you have some glue? Asked Lucero. No, said Horacio. And you? Started saying Lucero when she noticed that Judas had left. Close to dusk, Lucero brought the baby Jesus to Irina. With a sad face, she said, Horacio dropped the baby Jesus. Is this true, Horacio? Asked Irina. Yes, said Horacio, taking the blame for what his sister had done. He was always in the habit of doing so, even when people knew he was not even in the general vicinity. Irina stared long and hard at the statue. Eventually she sighed and said, We can just glue his head back on. It is a good thing it's made of stone and not flesh. A broken stone head can be repaired. A flesh one cannot. Well, run along then, said Irina. Efracio then left to the kitchen to do his homework. He was working on memorizing a poem. Lucero had a similar assignment, but she was putting it off till morning before having to do her recitation. She had learned that if she ate something sweet before memorizing something, she could easily recite it afterward. This method got the job done, but it would so happen that she would immediately forget the poem she had just memorized. For Lucero's brain, most of everything she learned in school was useless and not worth retaining. By the end of the school year, she would have forgotten almost everything, including the students and the names of the teacher. Anyhow, instead of trying to memorize her little Jose Marti poem, Lucero was tackling Volume 2 of The Three Musketeers. She had seen her father read the book recently, and he had finished it rather quickly as well. Lucero imagined that it might be a good easy read. She read a couple of paragraphs into the book before becoming completely bored. The night was spent quite at ease, but for reasons nobody in the family understood, Irina seemed melancholy. Oh yeah, we still have time?
Yeah, we have 6 minutes and 34 seconds.
Irina was thinking about her firstborn son. Before Angelica's older sister was born, Irina had her first son, Juan Carlos. She had been suffering from depression after his birth. Unaware, she gave her son away to an aunt. She offered her son to the aunt in a picnic basket. Years later, she went to Spain to see how her son was doing. Juan Carlos did not speak to his mother. Rather, he gave her this baby Jesus inside the picnic basket he had been abandoning. This kid said it all, and since then Irina had never tried to speak to her son, Juan Carlos. Alright, we're now in chapter 12, the fireworks. See, we're like making good progress today.
Alright, 5 minutes.
It was early summer, and another school year ended. The children were finally free to do as they desired. It was during the summertime that the carnival was usually held. Carnival, not the carnival. The days vary from region to region. This was in part due to the Cuban government's desire to remove all religious connotation from the carnivals, and so this event no longer took place during the religious holiday. They were usually done by an institution for a specific purpose or other. This year the parents felt like the kids were old enough to see one. It didn't bother to go to the carnival because after seeing it for quite some time, it had lost its novelty. The children, the players, and the parents sported sleeveless shirts and shorts. Teresitos. This was done to cope with the heat. For some reason, during Carnival, there was never any breeze from the ocean. With so many bodies and masses, it was guaranteed that by the time you got home, the family would be dripping in sweat. Slowly, from other houses started emerging all of the performers. To the children, the faces were both strange and familiar. One of the faces they recognized was Mamadou. He was playing the drums dressed in a colorful costume. The checkerboard pattern alluded to the mad harlequin, but the Caribbean elements created the structural dissonance with the European-looking costume. The Cuban carnival had been performed since the 16th century. During those festive days, the slaves and their descendants were allowed to practice their cultural tradition. Over the centuries, the African traditions and the Spanish-European ones blended into the carnival of today. Still, some aspects remain immutable. It always started at sunset, with the main performers coming out of their homes to meet the others in La Calle Real or the Royal Road. Soon the beating of the drums and the show was allowed to start. The floor stood up in dazzling lights. There were pillars that towered over the neoclassical Spanish buildings that lit La Calle Real. The children noted the dancers, the lights, and the fun. And since the spectators entranced also started dancing as they saw the floats passing by. On top of each of them there was the main dancing lady. Back when she was in school, Angelica had been one of the main dancing girls on top of the floor of her school. When she had told Lucero this, naturally the girl asked how one was chosen. Angelica invented a story about a rigorous dancing competition. The reality was a simple each one just put your name on it. The head of the institution arranged for all of the positions, and One simply had to follow in suit to be allowed to participate. When the main float arrived, it was steamed after a papaya. In the middle of the fruit, there was a lady dancing. This caused a lot of giggles and hooting for plenty of Cuban reasons. The fire was still okay. Anyhow, from this flood, air erupted fireworks. They were plenty cool, but as they started falling down, people instinctively took shelter. The fire was still glowing and landed on the floor. They would have scorched anyone who had stayed there when the sparks landed. This was not a new occurrence. For as long as Eduardo and Angelica could remember, the fire had always burned people. It was part of the reason why the parade floats shot the fireworks had a canopy. It was usually clear of the dancers and performers, and they knew to stay the hell away from the fireworks. The time, bro?
2 minutes.
Angelica and Ofracio followed the movement of the fireworks with their eye, and since the parents drew back, they followed in suit. The children who did not were dragged away. This was the first time that the children had seen fireworks, and they were fascinated by them. The celebration ended around midnight, and the people dispersed as the last float passed by. Some followed behind it as it made its final round in La Calle Real. As long as there was music turning, there was still a party to be had. The parents carried the exhausted children back home. When they arrived home, they knocked on the door. Angelica yelled, "Mother, we are home. Open the door." There was no answer. Eduardo added, "This isn't funny. Open the door." After 10 minutes of knocking, Judas came outside and said, "Some people are trying to sleep." Mom fell asleep. "Can you climb on top of the roof and see if you can wake her? Her bedroom is the first window on the left," explained Angelica. "What a bother," said Judas. He did as he was told. Climbing on top of the roof of his own house, he then walked to the roof of the other. And from there, he climbed down the antenna to get in the interior garden. Alright, we're gonna continue this later. Bye bye and God bless. Is it thing rolling? Is it? Alright, so like we're now in chapter 12 of La Casa, the fireworks, and I'm continuing from where I left off. He knocked on the door of Irina's room. He said, "Grandma, you left your grandkids locked outside. Please do have the decency to get up and open the door." The door opened after hearing a lot of locks and bolts turning. Irina had a machete and she was half asleep. Her eyes opened wide when she saw Judas. She took a swing at him and Judas said, "Whoa, I'm your neighbor. It's me, Judas. You know me. Or have you gone see now?" Irina narrowed her eyes a bit and then the light of recognition came into her face. Frowning, she said, "What are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing, although you remember. Your kids went to the carnival. They're outside and you locked them out of the house," explained Judas. "Oh, yes, that's right. I forgot," said Irina, alarmed. She ran to the entrance and she removed all the last locks to allow the family to enter inside. With the noise probably solved, Judas allowed himself to return to bed. Waiting for him was his cat, Mika. He lay down on the bed and he put the cat on top of his forehead. Once both felt comfortable, Judas breathed in a sigh of relief and he quickly fell asleep. The following day was more or less uneventful. Since the carnival happened to coincide with an important secular holiday, there was the fireworks at night. It was around 8 p.m. when the fireworks began. The children were watching with their parents a TV show called Pateando la Lata, or Kicking the Can. It was a variety comedy show with different skits. From time to time, it got Sancho. One of the best jokes was about telling the children to behave, otherwise they would be forced to watch Russian cartoons. The children came outside to see the fireworks. Francis saw across the road Jennifer. She lived in the house right in front of her. He asked her, "Can you see the fireworks from there?" "Yes, I can see them clearly from my house," said Jennifer. The brothers and sisters ran across the road to see the fireworks. Francis held his sister's hand and then he looked both ways before crossing the road. The street was pretty dark, so even looking both ways didn't help much. On the one corner there was a single light post, and whenever there were blackouts, it was the only thing that was lit on. This night in particular, it was turned off. As a result, the street was in complete darkness. Efrasia was only able to recognize Jennifer because of her silhouette. She too was bathed in shadows, while the faint black lighting of the windows and was somewhat attenuated by the faint backlighting of the windows that was hid behind the curtain. The streets themselves were pretty silent, except for the occasional sound of fireworks. The shooter went back and forth between the houses a couple of times. On the fourth time they were crossing the street, they got run over. Thankfully, they got run over by a bicycle and not a car. This is not to say that a bike cannot kill a person. It has been known to happen, but there are no statistical records of pedestrian deaths caused by bicycles. Francis was the first to rise, and his sister soon followed. The impact had pushed Francis, and he had pushed his sister to the side as well. As a result, Lucero fell into the asphalt, bruising her hands and knees. Since Francis had gone limp, he didn't get hurt too much. Still started, he did what came naturally to him. Crying, him and his sister started yelling and running back home before saying, "Mom, we got run over." "What?" exclaimed the three adults. Angelica ran to Lucero first, who seemed quite bloody. After getting the wounds clean and bandaged, Lucero was more or less in one piece. Still, she would go limp from her scraped knees for the next couple of months. She would limp from her scraped knees for the last couple of months. On the following morning, Efracio came outside to practice his straight punch. He was disappointed to know that Judas was not there. Efracio saw across the road where he had fallen. There were some blood marks on the place where Lucero had fallen. He also noticed that there was a blood splatter ahead as well. What had occurred was that the cyclist had been propelled from his seat after bashing against the two-shooter. Since he did not have a helmet, he had bashed his skull against the floor. The front of the wheel of the bike had been ruined. The identity of the cyclist was poor Judas. He had been returning from visiting his grandmother when he ran over the children. Since his bicycle had no light and the street light was off, he didn't see anything. This was an unfortunate accident. Still, this did not stop Judas from becoming depressed, and he was not seen or heard from until fall. And when he was spotted again, he was his usual self, all thanks to the curing magic of electroshock therapy. And how much time do we have in the...
9 minutes, 45 seconds.
Alright. Okay, chapter 13, The Moon. The school year began, and with it its first series of blackouts. Almost every Wednesday there was a blackout. The reason behind it didn't matter much. It was during one of those hot nights that the shadow began to appear on top of the roof of the house. The couch always faced the interior garden, and during those hot nights the garden was open to allow the moonlight to enter. Lucero had just received her treatment, and she was not feeling particularly well. To help her feel better, her mother was giving her soft tickles in the back of on her back using the tips of her fingernails. The teeth. It was then when she noticed the shadow on top of the roof. It was sporting a white mask. The distortion of the darkness, combined with the fever and the nausea, distorted the figure. Lucero thought that it was the moon that had come for her. At the time, the family had been seeing a cool telenovela called Mujeres de Arena, or Women Made of Sand. It was about a special fellow who used to make sand sculpture. He happened to be raised by the guy who murdered his mother, though he did not know it at the time. Anyhow, every so often, when he was feeling blue, he would go out to the mountains and start asking the moon to take him away. Whenever this occurred, his friends would track him down up the mountain, and they would tie him to a tree to keep the moon from sucking him up into the sky. There was a lot of magic realism in that telenovela. In Spanish folklore, the moon is the personification of death. The reason behind it is that a lot of people tended to drop dead due to exposure. Without proper shelter, humans can easily drop dead. This is why having a roof over your head is important. One never knows when the moon might come for you and take you away. When Lucero thought she saw the moon, she closed her eyes and she covered her face. She did so whenever she was watching a scary movie. She opened her hands a little to peer to see if the shadow was gone. The shadow had indeed departed when he noticed that the girl had seen her. There was a lot of bizarre superstitions about the girl. It would get even worse the following week after she received her healing mass. Overnight she had been cured by the saints or medicine. It depends what you want to believe. The following morning, Angelica and her children went to see Ricardo. He was at home with his oldest daughter, looking rather nervous. His wife was in labor, and it was tradition for him to drink himself stupor. Whenever he was drunk, he would beat his daughter within an inch of his life. To prevent this, Angelica was at home with him. The children were in the back garden with Jana Maria. They were looking at the birds in the backyard. Ricardo, Lucero were looking at the bird, one of the birds that she asked Jana Maria, how does it work? Jana Maria explained, you put seeds here, and when the bird stands on it, the trap opens out and then he's caught. Ah, poor bird, said Ofracio. It is for the best, I suppose. Outside, it will get eaten by other birds, or it will starve to death. At least, in this prison, it will have some degree of certainty, said Jana Maria. I don't know, it all depends on the owner, said Lucero. Yes, there is one kid in class that gets a new pet bird practically every week. The dog eats it or he squashes it. It seems like such a waste to provide 5 seconds of entertainment to an irresponsible brat, said Ofracio. Oh, is that why you never asked Father to give you a bird? Asked Jana Maria. I just don't feel like I'm ready to take care of something that's alive. I can barely keep my houseplants alive, said Ofracio. That's because you don't water them, said Lucero. And you water them too much, retorted Ofracio. I suppose that is how things are. For people to learn, a lot of creatures must die, said Jana Maria. And we saw them today, commented Lucero. I suppose it's a stupid telenovela that's got everyone thinking about the moon, said Jana Maria. Well, the dogs don't help much in that department, said Lucero. The conversation continued candidly. Eventually, Angelica came to pick up the children. She said to Jana Maria, I spoke with your father, and he said that you could go to the pool with us. Do you want to come? Yes, if I must, said Jana Maria. Jana Maria hated the pool because she always got terrible sunburns. One time it got so bad that she had to get a special ointment used on burn victims. Remembering this, Angelica said, we're not going to that pool. We're going to Aguas Claras. It has some ponds for shading, so I thought that you would get my sunburn there. Neat, said Jana Maria happily. Jana Maria ran to her bedroom. She took care to shorten her pace and look sudden when she passed by her father. There was nothing that her father hated more than seeing her happen when he was miserable. She took her clothing and her pink polka dot bathing suit. The girls wore elegant white dresses and shoes. In the bus station, they met Angelica's nurse and friends, Camila, Dominguez, Vargas, Cueva, etc., etc. Since Camila was so unimportant, she was able to go to the tourist resorts only. Since it was the low season, the resort of Aguas Claras was empty. It had a nice pool, the type that actually had a bottom. On that particular day, Camila had a camera. She said to Angelica, do you want to take some nice photos of the children? Certainly. It has been ages since I received film from the States, said Angelica. Next under submission there, I could see about getting you some film, suggested Camila with a gleaming eyes. Oh, please, it's not that important, said Angelica. She knew that when Camila said get, she meant steal. Then again, stealing was not seen as a true crime in Cuba. It was all about the poor getting what they deserved from the rich. Angelica made her way towards the fountain. Her kids and Jana Maria followed along. They all took one photo each by the fountain. What time?
2 minutes.
After concluding the photo shoot, the kids went to the pool. Since Angelica was not feeling in a swimming type of mood, she went outside to take a nap while pretending to sunbathe. As for Camila, she started giving swimming lessons to the children. The hours rolled slowly by, and around late afternoon, Angelica awoke with a start. She was having a stress dream about riding a bike while surrounded by infinite darkness. When Angelica awoke, she was dripping in a cold sweat. She whispered, God be willing, I will learn to forgive or at least forget. Talking to yourself, are you? Asked Camila, staring at Angelica with mild amusement. No, I'm not. I am praying, said Angelica. Both are one and the same if you ask me, said Camila, raising an eyebrow. Let's not get into that right now, said Angelica, jumping into the pool. Ah, you're no fun, said Camila. Jesus Christ, the water's cold, commented Angelica after rising to the surface. After the swimming lesson, the children went to play with a ball. Meanwhile, Camila and Angelica spoke about work nonsense. At the moment, the children were singing a silly song while holding hands and going round and round. As for the moment, they were talking about another abandoned baby incident. It had been left in the cemetery to die. The avispas or wasps were thinking of starting the cemetery to see who was the jerk who kept doing that in order to turn her into an example. As it stood, children were a precious resource that they could just not do without. While they were talking about this, Angelica remembered the story she had heard from her great-grandmother about her mother's birth. Irina's mother at the time had 2 children. She had been thinking about aborting her third daughter. Eventually, her cousin convinced her not to do so. She said that Irina could be a friend of her son or her daughter. When Irina eventually came into the world, her mother still ended up abandoning her in a barn. When she was found, the ants had already bitten her. This story was enough to scar Irina for life, and she wondered why they had even told her that she was unwanted in the first place. The night fell, and with it rose the moon. Alright, we'll continue with the moon and her antics later. Bye-bye and God bless. Hello, my name is Teresita Blanco, the artist sister, and today we're reading La Casa. We're going to see if we can finish off this book. Alright. The night fell, and with it the rising moon. Since the children liked their own beds, the family and Camila took a horse carriage home. Despite the shading trees, the kids got sunburned. Camila made a mental note to acquire some ointment cream. Angelica first took her kids home before walking Jana Maria back home. Jana Maria used the spare key to let herself inside. Everyone in the neighborhood knew that he was hidden under the rug. The thieves never bothered to give Ricardo a visit because they knew he was dirt poor. Whatever money he made was always spent away in rum. Jana Maria found her father passed out outside in the garden. He was without his shirt, sitting on a rocking chair. He had barf on his cheek, and his head was sunken into his head. Jana Maria saw his figure painted under the moonlight. He looked so peaceful in his sleep. His face was almost kind even. Jana Maria pondered if the moon was going to take her father tonight. Jana Maria was not so mean-spirited to wish for the moon to come for him, but she would not mind it either way. She sighed and she went to sleep in her small bed. She did not even bother to bring a blanket for her father. That night, the moon did not come for Ricardo. Chapter 14. The Moon Cometh. The last day that the Mason family lived under the house started like any other day. The children ate scrambled eggs for breakfast with rice and beans. The mother and father had the same morning shift, so they would both be at home. Since Angelica had spent her more time with the kids, Eduardo decided to pick them up from school. In the meantime, Angelica was sewing some curtains. She wanted to doll up the house a bit. From time to time, the sewing machine would run for longer than what it should, which was a bit annoying. Angelica blamed it on the arcade mechanic pedal, but there was a different reason for it. Meanwhile, Irina was throwing the car. Smiling, she said, "The cards tell me my son is going to be rich." "When?" asked Angelica. "Eventually. He has a split tongue, so he's well-spoken. His speech is going to get him really far in life," said Irina. "If you say so, Mother, but all the money in the world doesn't matter in a place such as this," said Angelica. "Again with it, I'm telling you." "I'm not going, and neither are you," said Irina. Angelica did not press the issue. She was going to have her way with and without her mother. She could not govern her life forever. As for the children, Efracio was in school talking with his friends during recess. He said to the penguin, "I'm going to leave you my Daddy with all the games. Are you certain? Don't you want to leave it for Jana Maria?" asked the penguin. "Nah, she's coming with us. Lucero said so, and when Lucero wants something, Mom and Dad usually give her what she wants for the sake of peace. Inside a classroom, Lucero was talking with Miss Perez. She said to her, "Can I have your daughter?" "For sure, for how long?" asked Miss Perez. "Forever," said Lucero. "No, are you insane?" asked Miss Perez, laughing. When laughter, Lucero changed her candid tone. Her face and it shifted into a frown. She then said, "When I'm gone, I want to get Jasmine all of my dust." "I don't think you're going to die anytime soon, Lucero. I hear that you're actually getting better," said Miss Perez. "Better, yes, but you never know," said Lucero. Afterwards, she knocked on wood to remove the bad start. The following afternoon, the children were taken to the nearby museum. They saw the statues of dinosaurs. Lucero looked inside the zoo where greased because she thought she heard a strange hissing. Inside, she thought she saw a dinosaur passing by. The kids had heard stories about cloning experiments in Havana. It did not seem too impossible to imagine that the Cuban government already had living, breathing dinosaurs. The thing in the zoo was actually just a crocodile. When late afternoon came, Eduardo was there to receive his children. While they were walking back home, they were practicing the colors by describing the houses. The kids already knew all the colors. Still, this was part of their happy routine with their father. Everything was going well till Eduardo saw a dog passing by. His heart started to race, and so he picked up both his children in order to try to keep them safe from the dogs. In response to his fear, all three of them came to bark at him, and so did all of the other dogs of the packs. The dogs were responding to Eduardo's fear. Eduardo panicked Eufrasio panicked, and he started yelling, "Dad, run, run!" And so Eduardo did run, though he fell when Silvereye pulled at his sock. The fall caused Eduardo to land on top of his daughter with Eufrasio on top of him. Lucero started crying, and the dog smelled the blood. Silvereye, feeling sad, decided to spare the girl, with all of the dogs following behind him. Eduardo picked up his daughter, and he saw that her shirt was stained red. Worried, he opened it, and he saw that the girl had a terrible scrape. Other than that, she was fine. He said, "Oh God, what am I going to tell your mother?" Lucero, still crying, said, "I want ice cream." "I will get you some, but first let's get you cleaned up, okay, honey?" said Eduardo. Eufrasio's mom, when he noticed Lucero crying while asking for ice cream. Lucero had a high tolerance for pain, so she mustn't have been in a lot of pain if she was malingering to get ice cream. After the father arrived home with his children. Angelica saw the girl and her husband's pitiful face. He cleaned the wound without saying anything. Before going out the door, he said, "I'm going to go buy ice cream." "Why?" asked Angelica. "Lucero wants some," said Eduardo. "Aren't we saving for the trip?" asked Angelica. "I had come to realize something. In the past, I said that it was important to save up while you have money, because when you don't have money, then there was nothing to save. But the money in the bank is useless, and I would rather use it now than deal with some uncertain, unforeseen calamity. Nothing in the future is for certain. We might get run over or mauled by a dog, and then the money will just be sitting there rotting," said Eduardo. Angelica said, "What is truly bothering you?" "I don't know. I haven't been happy in a long time," said Eduardo. After Eduardo returned home with the ice cream. It was partly melted, but Lucero still dug into it nonetheless. From time to time, she would take a spoonful and feed it to her brother. She was halfway done with the dog when she said, "Woof, I'm full. You can eat the rest." Eufrasio smiled and went to dig in, but Irina said, "No, you're going to spoil your dinner, and you, Lucero, I hope you did not spoil. I think you had too much ice cream." "Oof, I'm full." The family had dinner, with the exception of Lucero. When it came time to go to because she was full of ice cream. When it came time to go to sleep, the house was closed. Around midnight, Lucero awoke from bed to go do her business. After finishing, she noticed that the window in the kitchen was open. It also had no bars. Slowly, on her tiptoe, she walked back to sleep with her grandmother. Standing over Irina was the shadow with a mask as pale as moonlight. Lucero noticed the man, and the man saw Lucero. Bros froze on the spot, tense. Lucero's cold blood kicked in. She then went to lie back down in bed, and she turned her back to the stranger. The man with the white mask breathed a sigh of relief. He resumed his midnight looting before departing. On his way back to his home, the man ran into Theodore. The moonlight gave a strange supernatural glow to the old dog. Theodore howled in the same fashion as a wolf. The thief started to run, but Theodore was swifter. The man was mauled by the stray dogs, and he bled out in the street with his face facing the moonlight. With his last bit of strength, he removed the mask. Laughing, Ricardo said, "So you have come for me at last, Moon." Alright, and that's the end of La Casa. Alright, how much time we have?
6 minutes.
Oh, well, I guess I can read you the epilogue. I don't know. Okay. It has been 5 years since the Mason family left the house in Cuba for that matter. Together with Jana Maria and her sister, they are living in the States in a comfortable two-room apartment in the prestigious city of Hialeah. During their first year in the States, the family were homeless. Eventually, a CIA spy threw them a bone. With his help, they were able to move into a small apartment. They are far more cramped than they have ever been, especially with 2 extra children. Jana Maria and her sister Philip became fully orphaned after their mother got the news of what happened, that Ricardo got mauled by Silvereye. In a fit of sadness, Jana Maria's mother ate and ate. She ate so much that her stomach ruptured and he died. It was a rare cause of death, especially in a country such as Cuba where food is scarce. Still, it has been known to happen. Angelica had by now made peace with her mother, and she had reconciled her feelings of resentment. She had even quit smoking. Irina too no longer smoked, in part because they did not have true Cuban cigars in the store. She could tell by the smell. If she was going to smoke something, it was going to be something that she really liked. Efracio was getting straighter, and he was also in a debate team. And from Cuba, he had learned to be careful with what he said. As for Lucero, she had picked up the habit of painting and drawing, and she was in the process of designing her original character for one of her comic books, and her brother was also helping in that department. Meanwhile, Jana Maria was excelling in math and science, and she was planning to become a dentist when she got bigger. The entire family was saving up to go to Disney World for the first time. And the others, well, Judas moved to Spain with his wife, Mrs. Perez, and little Jasmine. Judas opened a karate studio and is still teaching. Mamadou too left for the state, and he changed his name as well. And he was currently living in Key West with the person he forsook naming country with. Kudos Theodore continued life as before. The departure of the Mason family did not change much about his life. He died at the ripe old age of 24, and his descendants are still announced in Pinar del Rio, though from time to time the government tries to call the stray dog population. As for the house, it still sits there uninhabited. In the future, it might turn into a little tourist village, or even a little Airbnb. Nobody seems inclined to go live there because it is rumored to be haunted. Though the hauntings have a simple logical explanation, it is a lot simpler and a lot more fun to imagine that the house is haunted. Well, now we're really officially done with the house. Bye bye and God bless.